Hey guys, tonight we're trading doom scrolling for Alpine mist, specifically the kind that clings to your skin like cold silk. Right now, imagine your boots crunching through pine needles, older than tick-tock. Somewhere ahead, a shepherd's hut perches on the slope like a stubborn old goat. Its chimney puffs wood smoke, a signal even your Wi-Fi deprived brain can't ignore. Let's get real. You'd last 10 minutes here before Googling how to identify edible moss. No judgment. The Alps claimed over 800 lives last year, and that's just the skiers. But don't panic yet. Hit like if you're vibing with this. Subscribe if you want the full survival guide. Bonus points if you comment your location and local time. I'll pretend I'm not envious of your coastal breezes. Now dim the lights. Maybe crack a window. Hear that? Exactly. Silence. Let's fix that. Your first step punches through crusted snow. The sound like celery snapping in a silent kitchen. Frost feathers the pines, each branch sagging under the weight of centuries. Here's a fun fact: Roman soldiers marched these slopes 2,000 years ago. Their leather sandals left grooves in trade routes, now buried under 6 feet of ice. The hut's silhouette sharpens, its timber walls warped by 80 winters. A goat's skull grins above the door, moss spilling from empty eye sockets. Alpine shepherds believed mist carried whispers from the dead. Modern hikers blame altitude sickness. Either way, your neck prickles. 3 sleet-laden breaths, then wood grates on stone. The door swings, revealing firelight that dances like trapped summer. Smoke braids with sage and juniper, a scent older than the Holy Roman Empire. Your nose twitches. That's not just any wood burning, it's Swiss stone pine. Crusaders shipped it to Jerusalem for antiseptic bandages. Inside, a rusted cauldron dominates the hearth. Historians still argue whether medieval herbalists used copper pots for purity or placebo. The answer? Both. Your fingers hover near the rim, heat kissing your palm like a dare. Shadows leap as you shed your coat. Something crunches underfoot, not snow. Dried lavender. The floor's a mosaic of herbs, thyme for courage, mint for clarity, wolfsbane for well. Let's not touch that. A gust slams the door shut, the shockwave rattling jars on a sagging shelf. One tilts, revealing a label in smudged charcoal. Mutterkraut. You dimly recall its German for mother's herb, a uterine stimulant. Suddenly, that herbal tea on the stool looks intentional. The fire pops, an ember arcs onto the rug. You stamp it out, the smell of singed wool joining the herbal stew. 4 heartbeats pass, then a creak from the loft. Not mice, too heavy. Your phone's in your pocket, 0 bars, but the camera flash could blind a bear. The ladder groans. A boot emerges, then a hand calloused like tree bark. You're late, he rasps. Before you can explain, he thrusts a chipped mug into your hands. The steam smells like honey and gravesol. Across Europe, midwives once buried afterbirth with yarrow to ensure fertility. You take a sip, cold spreads from your ribs outward, the firelight dimming to a faint gold halo. His lips move, words slipping through like radio static. Brew, moon cycles, lichen, the mug warms. Or maybe your fingers are numb. Snow hisses against the roof. 5 coughs rack your chest, each ending with a metallic tang. The shepherd smirks, nodding at the blackened cauldron. Good, he grunts. Now it knows your voice. Outside, the wind screams. Inside, the fire dies. But the cauldron gleams, a dull copper eye in the dark. Edge closer. The liquid inside swirls thick as motor oil. 1 drop spatters your wrist. It doesn't burn. It hums. A rumble shakes the hut, not thunder. Distant, deeper. Avalanche, or the kind of groan mountains make when shifting weight. The shepherd doesn't flinch. He slides a knife across the table, handle pointed your way. Peel the bark, he says, nodding at a willow branch. Women's work. Your protest dies. Aspirin's precursor lurks in those bitter strips. History side note. Hippocrates prescribed willow tea for labor pains. You split the bark, white fibers clinging like cobwebs. He grunts approval, tossing the strips into the cauldron. The brew belches, a greenish plume curling into the rafters. Your eyes water. The scent pine resin and rotting roses triggers a memory you can't place. Childhood sickness. A nursery rhyme. Footsteps circle the table. His shadow looms, blocking the last embers. Now, he growls, palms flat on the wood. You'll learn why fire fears the cold. The door blows open, snow whipping in like shrapnel. You spin mug, shattering on the floor. No one's there. Just moonlight pale as a witch's knuckle pooling on the threshold. The shepherd laughs, a sound like axe heads grinding. Relax. That's just your past catching up. He kicks the door shut, the goat's skull rattling. You notice its horns are charred. Did the fire do that? Or something hotter? Sleet ticks against the window, Morse code from the storm. Your fingers find the willow branch again. Peel, twist, repeat. The rhythm syncs with your pulse. When the cauldron finally boils, thick bubbles blooping like swamp gas, he nods toward the ladder. Sleep, he says, already turning back to the fire. Dawn comes faster here. The loft's hay prickles through your sleeping bag. You count 60 heartbeats, then 600. The cauldron's whisper follows you into dreams. It sounds like your name, but sharper. You halt mid-step, boots sinking into moss that smells like forgotten rain. The creak comes again, a sound of weathered wood arguing with iron hinges. He stands framed in the doorway, a human-shaped extension of the mountain itself. Leather trousers patched with what looks like mushroom leather. Shepherds once used puffball spores to waterproof their gear during the 30 Years' War. His handshake fractures your expectations, calluses rough as tree bark, yet warmth radiating from the palm. Eyes up here. He rumbles amused as you stare at the pine resin stains mapping his knuckles. You catch a whiff of his tunic, wood smoke, and something salty sweet. Historians still argue whether medieval Alpine herders drank fermented gentian root for courage, or just to survive winter's tasting like gym socks. He motions you inside without breaking stride. The hut exhales a breath of dried mint and aging timber. Your shoulder brushes a hanging clump of edelweiss, petals preserved so perfectly they might have been plucked yesterday. Stupid flowers, he grunts, kicking the door shut with a boot heel. City folk pay gold for 'em. Up here, they're just weeds that outlive everything. A blackened kettle dominates the hearth, its curved belly reflecting firelight like a drowsy cyclops. You count 12 clay jugs lining the shelves, each stopper carved with symbols that might be letters or bird tracks. He catches your gaze. Don't get ideas. Last thief who tried a sip woke up speaking in pig Latin for a week. The joke lands awkwardly, like a sheep attempting ballet, but you chuckle anyway. He drags a stool from the shadows. The legs scrape stone in a protest that sets your teeth on edge. Sit, he says, already pouring liquid so dark it eats the firelight. The cup warms your palms, a heat that feels older than the cracked ceramics. You blink this close. His irises hold flecks of amber that mirror the brew's hue. 3 silent sips. The taste unfolds in layers. First, charred honeycomb. Then, a punch of thyme sharp enough to make your sinuses tingle. Finally, buried deep, the ghost of blueberries crushed under hoarfrost. Your tongue tingles, whether from herbs or the thrill of trespassing into his world. A goat bell clanks outside. He doesn't flinch. They'll wait. He mutters, stoking the fire with a rod that glows like a rogue constellation. Embers spiral upward. You follow their dance toward the ceiling where moonlight slips through smoke holes. He traces one drifting spark with his finger. Every fire's a rehearsal, he says. Same flames that kept Ötzi, the Iceman's kin, alive 5,000 winters back. Your cup clinks against the table too loud in the sudden quiet. He refills it wordlessly, this time adding a twig snapped from a hanging bundle. Steam coils into shapes that almost resemble runes. You squint, trying to parse them before they dissolve. Drink, don't study, he chides. Wisdom's not in the seeing. It's in the swallowing. The brew's second draft bites harder, a medicinal aftertaste that lingers like a dare. Shadows deepen as the fire dwindles. His profile becomes a knife-edge silhouette against glowing coals. Somewhere beyond the walls, wind combs through juniper bushes, an ancient lullaby in a key only stones understand. He leans forward, elbows on knees, the fire's last gasp painting his wrinkles liquid gold. Your turn, he says, nodding at the shelf of jugs. You hesitate, fingers hovering over stoppers, until his chuckle stops you. Not that one, unless you fancy hallucinations featuring singing marmots. You withdraw, choosing instead a vessel dusted with what might be ash or pollen. The liquid inside defies description, smelling of snowfall and a promise you can't name. He watches, saying nothing, as you raise the cup. Some say mountain brews gained potency from being stirred with fir twigs during lightning storms. But you're pretty sure that's just Alpine tall tailies. The first sip crashes through you, a flavor that might be sunlight distilled through pine needles. Or maybe you've just been hypnotized by the crackle of resinous logs. Outside, a night bird trills. Inside, the hut hums with quiet so dense you could carve it. His calloused hand lands on your shoulder, brief and firm, as he takes back the cup. "Enough for tonight," he says, gesturing to a pallet of sheepskins in the corner. "Tomorrow's herbs won't pick themselves." You lie awake long after his snores sync with the wind, staring at herbs dangling L-I-K-E, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter above. The fire crumbles to ruby pebbles, each exhale of dying, embers whispers of dawn's approach. Somewhere beyond these walls, the mountain holds its breath. Dawn licks the hut's eastern wall, its light gilding herb bundles swaying like hanged men. You blink grit from your eyes, the shepherd's already hunched over the hearth, shredding dried greenery into a mortar. Crushed sage tickles your throat, its scent a dusty green ghost. He side-eyes your yawn. Rome fell faster than you woke up, and they had better pillows. Firelight dances across time strung overhead, each cluster throwing spidery shadows on soot-stained beams. You trace a finger through the dust motes. It swirls like a galaxy in miniature. "Don't stir the air," he grumbles. "You'll mix up the dreams." Historians still argue whether medieval monks stuffed their pillows with hops for restful sleep, or visions of their 3rd century saint. He thrusts a willow basket at your chest, its rim gnawed by teeth that could belong to goats or generations of frustrated apprentices. Sort the sage from the mugwort, unless you want tonight's brew to send your bladder singing to the moon. You kneel on packed earth, fingers stumbling through leaves crisp as papyrus. A blackened hook holds a clump of shriveled berries over the flames. Their smoke curls into shapes that flirt with meaning. You squint. Is that a rabbit or a badly drawn crown? "Elderflower," he says without looking up. Romans tossed it in bathwater to sweeten emperors' tantrums. His knife thwacks a root into splinters. The sound echoes like a woodsman's heartbeat. The quirkiest herbalists claim grinding valerian under a full moon amplifies its sleep powers. But you're pretty sure that's just insomniac folklore. The shepherd sprinkles powdered bark into a simmering pot. Its steam coats your face like a damp dog's breath. "Breathe deep," he orders. "This batch'll unknot muscles you didn't know you clenched." Sunlight slants through cracks, illuminating jars of murky tinctures lining a shelf. One label reads St. John's Folly in faded ink. Another shows a doodle of a goat with alarmingly human eyes. He catches your stare. "Traded 3 cheeses for that one. Still don't know if the cure worked or the patient just got bored of dying." You reach for a rusted ladle. He slaps your wrist. "That's for sheep dip, not lips that kissed city water." His chuckles rattle phlegm as he replaces it with a spoon whittled from juniper. The handle still bears teeth marks, story or warning. You can't tell. Noon arrives as a patch of heat on your neck. The hut now reeks of rosemary and regrets. He nods at a jug, swaddled in frayed wool. Pass the horehound. It's the glue holding this mess together. You freeze, the stoppers carved with a symbol matching the fever chart from last night. Wind sneaks under the door, fluttering a moth-eaten tapestry pinned above the hearth. The woven scene shows monks tending a garden of suspiciously phallic roots. Some say they grew mandrakes shaped like saints. Others swear that's just medieval propaganda and bad soil. He crumbles a leaf between thumb and blade. Its fragrance hijacks your sinuses. Savory, he declares, killed more plagues than priests' prayers. You make a mental note to Google that later if you ever escape these mountains with cell reception. Shadows stretch westward as the brew thickens, its surface reflecting dangling herbs like a witch's mobile. He dips a wooden chip, sniffs, then spits into the flames. The fire hisses, a sound like 1,000 librarians shushing. One more hour, he mutters. Good potions need to flirt with boiling, but never marry it. Your knees protest as you stand. Flakes of dried mud from the floor cling to your jeans like rustic confetti. He tosses a rag at your face. Wipe the shelf. Spider webs add texture. But old Marta choked on a cobweb in 32. You obey, uncovering a carving of 2 stick figures, gathering lightning in a basket. Dusk seeps through the smoke hole. Stars blink, awake one by one. The shepherd strains the brew through cloth the color of guilt. The liquid drips like molten amber. He offers a thimble-sized cup. Taste. It hits your tongue, clover honey wrestling a bitter cousin. Your eyes water. He grins, gums as pink as raw lamb. Herbal and heartache, doses measured in spit and stubbornness. The aftertaste lingers, a memory of sunlight on unripe apples. A wolf howls in the valley. Its cry slicks your spine with primal jelly. He tilts his head, listening, 3 miles east, searching for weakness. The cup trembles in your hand. He gentles his voice, a rasp of wool on stone. Fear's a useful herb if you don't let it oversteep. Embers crackle, their glow softens the hut's edges. You point to a tiny jar sealed with wax. What's in there? He hesitates, fingers brushing the lid. Mountain's tears, he finally says. Collect them during August thunderstorms. Shame, I've forgotten how to cry. The admission hangs between you, a bridge spun from spider silk. Outside, an owl dissects the silence. Inside, the copper pot sighs as it cools. He tosses a moth-eaten blanket at your face. Sleep, fire needs tending. You burrow into sheepskins, nose filled with the ghosts of 100 harvests. His whetstone scrapes against a blade, a lullaby older than swords. Name one herb, he challenges. You mumble, sage. The scraping pauses. Good start. Darkness thickens. The herbs sway in a draft you can't feel. Somewhere beyond exhaustion, you wonder if plants gossip about the hands that plucked them. Consciousness unravels, stitched back sporadically by the clink of jars and the old man's tuneless humming. A final ember winks out. The hut holds its breath until dawn. Dawn bleeds through the smoke hole, slapping your eyelids with the subtlety of a tavern brawl. The copper pot glints, its dense, catching first light like 1,000 tiny mirrors. You squint, each scratch tells a story in a language your city bones don't speak. The shepherd's boot nudges your ribs. Up cauldrons hate lazy admirers. His fingers stroke the vessel's rim, a lover tracing a jawline. 30 generations drank from this belly, plague years, and childbirth screams. Historians still argue whether Tudor brewers used copper for purity, or because it made their potions look expensive. Scholars love missing the point. He scrapes crusted residue from the pot's interior, flakes as black as betrayal. Full moon brews stick like guilt, no knife gets it all. A 14th century monk's journal claims moonlit copper amplified healing properties. But let's be honest, medieval moonlight probably just hid the mold. You lean closer, the metal hums against your palm. Or maybe that's last night's valerian still buzzing in your veins. How? It survived the melters. He snorts. Mountain wives hid their cauldrons in privies when kings came pillaging. Nothing noble about treasure hunting through shit. Firewood cracks startling a moth from your sleeve. The shepherd lobs a knotted root into the flames. Turkey rhubarb cost me 2 goats and a wife's patience. Steam spirals from the pot, carving shapes in the air. One cloud looks unsettlingly like your landlord. Romans thought copper vessels warded off Spartan curses. Spoiler, they didn't. He stirs clockwise, the ladle scraping a rhythm older than Latin. Got this hook from a Dresden trader, swore it belonged to a plague doctor who died mid-sneeze. The broth releases a scent, honey cut with cemetery soil. You gag. He smirks. Takes guts to swallow history raw. A 1787 brewer's ledger lists copper toxicity cases as hysteria. Proof men blame the metal when their recipes suck. Sunlight crawls up the walls, spotlighting hieroglyphic stains. One splatter resembles a dancing bear. The shepherd sloshes liquid into a chipped bowl. Drink before the mountain steals its kick. Your throat burns campfire smoke and unwashed apricots. Tastes like regret, close fermented morel, and the tears of someone who loved the wrong smith. His wheezy laugh spins cobwebs from the rafters. Alchemists once claimed verdigris could turn lead into lyrical poetry. Results included constipation and terrible sonnets. Wind howls through a cracked shutter. The cauldron's song shifts to a minor key. He slaps the side sound, rippling like a gong from a sunken ship. Hear that? Bronze Age plumbers perfected the note, dropped a C-sharp into Pompeii's throat. You trace a dent shaped like Bavaria. Bandits tried snatching it in 39. Cauldron cracked their skulls when the donkey bucked. He winks. Never underestimate an angry pot. Shadows stretch, filling the hut's corners with liquid gloom. The shepherd dunks a charred rope into the brew. Watch. He pulls it taut, a steaming obsidian thread. Proper consistency. Almost wrestled a Venetian merchant for this trick. Dusk arrives early, storm clouds clotting the sky. Rain hisses against hot metal. The cauldron exhales metallic ghosts. He rubs a thumb over a patina streak. Full moons sweat collected before dawn. If you enjoy hallucinations and wolf chases, lightning forks the valley for one snapshot second. The pot glows blue. Your hair stands up. Relax, he grunts. Just Thor flirting. Viking sagas mention cauldrons struck by lightning unleashing berserker rage. But that might have been bad mead and peer pressure. Midnight creeps in on owl feet. The brew's surface crystallizes, a skin like frozen pond scum. He skims it with a wolf's rib bone. Waste not the scums where the shadows hide. Stars blur through steam, Orion's belt dangling like a ladle over the hut. The shepherd leans back, joints popping like a cornfield. They'll beg you for the recipe, forget them. Pots choose their drinkers. Your eyelids dip, breath sinking with the simmer's pulse. The last thing you see, his palm pressed to the cauldron's belly, whispering news from a world where metal remembers what flesh forgets. Dawn cracks the sky, frost glittering like shattered chandeliers under your boots. The shepherd kicks a lichen-crusted basket your way. Rosemary first, they'll laugh at you if your fingers warm up. Cold bites through wool gloves, the kind of cold that makes saints curse. You snap a sprig, ice crystals fall like miniature chandeliers. Someone once told you medieval scholars tucked rosemary in their wigs to remember Latin verbs. But honestly, their wigs probably reeked of desperation and mothballs. He crouches, knuckles brushing a fuzzy leaf. Betony. Roman legions stuffed their sandals with it for marches, calluses over blisters. You kneel, knees protesting like unoiled hinges. Frost paints each plant with sugar glass armor. Chew the stem if you're stabbed. A mischievous glint, or if the soup's bland. Wind whips the valley, carrying the sharp cry of a hawk. The shepherd points to a cluster of yellow flowers. Agrimony stops bleeding and liars. Same plant, funny how that works. Historians still argue whether ancient surgeons used it for wounds or just to shut up noisy patients. You pocket a handful, petals crinkling like old love letters. Sunlight crests the ridge, melting frost into diamond trails down rock faces. He peels bark from a twisted shrub, resin staining his palms burnt sienna. Myrrh's moody cousin, we call it tearwood. A drop hits your wrist, smells like incense and regret. Burns slower than grudges. You spot a heart-shaped leaf, velvet soft and dewy. Reach blindly. His staff blocks your wrist. Foxglove grazes the skin, your heart races. Grazes the tongue, it stops. His beard twitches. Learned that after mistaking it for sage. Woke up 3 days later, engaged to a seamstress. The basket grows heavy, each herb a coiled secret. He names them rapid fire, mullein, yarrow, boneset. Latin terms dissolve into folk names. Lungs, lover, bloodnut, stormwort. 17th century herbalists reportedly bribed grave robbers for yarrow grown in coffin soil, macabre fertilizer for macabre times. Clouds belly down, the air thickens, with pending snow. He stops at a slope strewn with gray-green spikes. Woolly thyme survives mountain winters by pretending to be dead. You pluck a tuft, its peppery scent cuts through the cold. Stuff your mattress, drives off bedbugs and bad dreams. Or ex-husbands, your thumb brushes a plant with serrated leaves, sticky sap glues your fingers. Viper's friend draws out poison or a drunkard's secrets. He wipes his hands on sheepskin chaps. Misuse it, you'll hallucinate spiders in your porridge. Shadows shrink, noon sun bleaches the rocks bone white. The shepherd slices a mushroom from a dead log, gills blood red. Old man's beard. Boil it, helps coughs. Burn it, summons things. He pauses. Don't summon things. Lunch is black bread and silence. You crush a juniper berry, its piney sting erasing the taste of exhaustion. He nods at your purple-stained nails. Woad's cousin, dyed Celtic warriors, blue to terrify enemies. Modern use, terrify laundresses. A gnarled root emerges from his pocket, knotty as a witch's spine. Angelica. Colognes had reeked of plague, courtiers drenched themselves in this. Still stank, but floral. You snap a fiber, it tastes like licorice and lies. Wind shifts, snowflakes kiss your lashes. He yanks up a plant crowned with starry blooms. Thistle's shy sister, starwort. Boil it, kills a fever. Burn it, steam reveals your enemies. A snort, tried it once, saw my ex-wife. Threw the whole batch out. Twilight comes early, the basket brims with green contraband. Your fingers ache, the good ache of honest theft. He points to a straggly bush. Winter savory. Last harvest. Rub the leaves on goat cheese, tastes like summer, faked its own death. Darkness fills the valley's cup. Your breath hangs, a lantern with no flame. He grips your shoulder, calluses snagging wool. Remember, plants talk through scars. Chewed leaves, broken stems. A snowflake melts on his nose. Listen loud enough, they'll whisper how the world ends. You trek back each step, crunching frozen earth. The hut's chimney punches smoke into the dusk. His final lesson floats behind. Never trust a parsley patch near graves. Got me arrested in Milan. Firelight welcomes you, herbs swaying like hanged men. The cauldron simmers, its breath smells of root cellars and patience. He tosses a rosemary sprig into the flames. It crackles, an old woman's chuckle. Your palms itch sap and soil ground into crevices. The shepherd smirks. Wash up, unless you want your tea tasting of viper's spite. You scrub, water turns the color of stolen twilight. He arranges your hall, each plant judged like a newborn. Not bad, for a corpse who walks like live bait. Outside, wolves sing the mountain awake. You sip mint, steeped in melted snow, mentholated silence. His finger traces a vein in a burdock leaf. Monks used these as bookmarks, said truth sticks, better to rough edges. The fire pops, approving. Snow blankets the world, a deafening hush. Your CHEST feels fuller, not with air, with names. The shepherd nods, a barely there dip of his chin. Lessons end where dreams begin. Flames hug the copper cauldron, their dance casting tiger stripes on the hut's log walls. You hover near the hearth, too close until your eyebrows singe. The shepherd flicks rosemary ash at you. Ever seen a barmaid age cider? This is slower and less singing. He passes a wooden paddle, its handle worn smooth as a river stone. Stir counterclockwise. Confuses the bitterness, makes it think it's lost. Medieval monks perfected this slow swirl their mead brewed for emperors and nervous popes. You push the paddle through amber liquid. It sucks at the wood like a sugared mouth. Time collapses here. Minutes aren't ticks, they're bubbles bursting at the surface. A film forms golden scum. Skim it, he grunts. Life's mostly skimming. You lift the layer, iridescent as dragonfly wings. Steam carries ghosts of pine and rust. The fire dims. He feeds it juniper branches. Blue sparks pop like distant gunfire. 19th century brewers thought clockwise, stirring summoned demons. Idiots. Demons prefer their tea steeped in tax ledgers. You glance at the door, twilight again. The cauldron's belly gurgles, an impatient god. He slaps your wrist. Stop counting breaths. Brewing's a courtship, not a tavern brawl. Herbs float drowned stars. Valerian roots twist like arthritic fingers. A peppercorn bobs, a tiny wrecked ship. You point to dark flakes rising. Spoiled, he snorts. Saffron's cousin, bastard marigold, makes piss glow in moonlight. 16th century smugglers used it as festive urine. A pause. Zero practical use. Just pretty. The liquid thickens, honey pulled from a comb. He dips a tin cup, swirls it, sniffs. Oak bark's ready, adds tannins, same stuff that puckered your mouth at grandma's wine. Historians still argue whether Viking sailors drank tannin brews to prevent scurvy or just to forget icebergs. You taste a drop, it scalds, then unfolds into smoke maple orange peel. Heat pools under your sternum. Almost, he mutters. Needs more size. Retrieving a burlap sack, he spills dried apples into the brew. They sink, wrinkled cheeks ballooning. Fruits not for sweetness. Traps the anger in the fire. A log shifts, embers flare, casting his face in wolfish angles. My aunt boiled this same recipe during the '37 blizzard. Neighbors ate their furniture. We drank and hallucinated a symphony. Silence stretches. The cauldron sighs a wet, contented sound. He stabs a finger at the steam. Watch. The vapor coils, forms a spiral, dissolves. That's the moment. He dips 2 clay cups, handles shaped like owl talons. You blow, the liquid shivers. Don't, he warns. Respect the heat. First sip, molten amber. Second, black soil after rain. Third, the exact warmth of a childhood blanket. You exhale, a white plume mingling with steam. He leans back, boots propped on a soot-stained rock. You know why castles had endless staircases. Distracted invaders, while the cooks brewed poison. Night yawns beyond the doorway, cold and crisp as bitten celery. You sip slower now, each mouthful a layered epic. The shepherd nods at your cupped hands. That's how you unspool time, not with hourglasses, with patience. Your thumb traces the cup's rim. Staring at the fire feels like learning a new alphabet. He tosses a pinecone into the flames. It crackles into fireworks. Learning's just burnt fingers and wonder. Drink up. Tomorrow's lesson involves a goat with terrible taste in marigolds. Rain hammers the roof, each drop a drumstick made of ice. The hut shudders, its log walls groaning like old ship planks. You press a palm to the stone floor. The vibration crawls up your arm. Good storm, the shepherd grunts, turning a clay jar in his hands. Makes the shelves talk. He points to alcoves carved into the earth, rows of vessels squatting in shadow. Their lids glint dull gold, beeswax seals imprinted with thumbprints. 4th century monks stored wormhood this way. Beeswax outlives empires. A lightning flash freezes the room. Blue-white jars suddenly look like an apothecary's library. Thunder growls. The fire flinches. He tosses you a jar cold as a grave marker. Open it slow. Dust inside's older than your granddad's lies. The wax cracks, sweet resin scent floods your nose. Inside, crumbled, leaves the color of dried blood. Wood betony, he says. Crusaders stuffed it in their boots, said. It muffled heretic ghosts. You smirk. Actually work. Nah, but their feet smelled like a duke's garden. He grabs another jar, this one speckled like a quail egg. Saxifrage. Looks like gravel shoves, kidney, stones through you faster than a tavern jig. Historians still argue whether Viking midwives brewed it for childbirth or just to punish noisy husbands. Wind howls through a crack, playing the hut like a bone flute. He slaps mortar onto the gap, a moss-stuffed wad. Hungry yet, before you answer, he's prying open a jar marked with 3 slashes. Amber globs cling to the lid, a honeyed reek punching your sinuses. Garlic fermented in ox blood. Ottoman soldiers ate it before battles, made their sweat discouraging. You tried it once. My dog avoided me for weeks. He pockets the jar, drops a wink. Powerful stuff. May scare off the bear. Another thunderclap, closer now. Rain rattles the roof so hard the hanging herbs sway, dried chamomile heads nodding in agreement. He drags a stool to the shelves, stands crooked as he reaches for the highest jar. This one from the 32 avalanche. Elderberries preserved in lightning-struck honey. Tastes like arrogance and poor life choices. The storm crescendos. Hail now marbles of ice ricocheting into the dark. You peer at a squat jar sealed with black wax. What's in don't. His hand clamps your wrist. That's grave nightshade. Brewed wrong, it's either a love potion or a eulogy. He releases you, wipes his palm on his trousers. French queen drank it daily. Died mid-sneeze. Silence thickens, broken only by Hale's chaotic Morse code. He rubs his bearded chin, eyes distant. 19th century sailors swore beeswax seals could repel krakens. Used to lick 'em tasted like wasted hope. You touch a jar's wax cap. It yields slightly warmth trapped under your thumb. Why the thumbprints? Signature and superstition. Press hard enough, your essence seeps in. Some say the jars whisper. He snorts, tugs his ear. Course, that's rot. But rot's half of botany. The storm shrinks, now just rain's steady hiss. Firelight stretches the shelf shadows, they merge into one rippling creature. He tosses a log into the hearth, sparks swirl like drunk fireflies. Beeswax prayers, that's what my mother called the seals, not prayers to bees, but to whatever helps things stay. Your fingers brush a lid stamped with a child's tiny print, edges softened by decades of touch. Time folds, you're suddenly 10 years old, pressing clay into hand-shaped cookies. The memory blurs as he taps your shoulder, offers a chipped cup. St. John's wort and cloudberry. For the nerves. It goes down like sweetened smoke. The jars watch silent judges. He leans against the shelves, arms crossed. You know why alchemists failed to make gold. Distracted by things that already shone. Your eyelids dip herbs and age thick in the air. The storm murmurs its exit. Wet branches tap the roof in farewell. His voice softens a rasp hidden under rain's lullaby. Sleep. Tomorrow's lesson needs clear eyes and a strong stomach. A last ember pops, you jump. He chuckles low and graveled. Relax. Even thunderstorms get stage fright. The cup presses into your palm, still warm from the fire. Steam curls, a lazy serpent sniffing your eyelashes. You hesitate. The brew swirls gold flecked with indigo, as if he bottled dawn's first blush. Drink, the shepherd growls, more command than suggestion. First sip, honeyed heat blooms across your tongue. Then fire, not the throat scorch of whiskey, but summer meadows burning under noon sun. Your vision wavers. The hut's walls ripple like wet silk. He watches, lips quirked. Tibetan monks drank this to stay awake during month-long meditations. Called it liquid sunlight, but they also believed goats could levitate. The taste shifts, now wild strawberries crushed on a stone, seeds prickling your gums. A memory flashes, bare feet in dewy grass, 7 years old, chasing fireflies. The shepherd snaps his fingers, the vision shatters. Focus, brews half herb, half mirror. You gag, sudden bitterness floods your mouth, rotten walnuts and burnt hair. He barks a laugh. Ah, there's the wormhood. Roman gladiators rubbed it on sores, said it gave them mercury's speed. A metallic tang follows coins left in vinegar. Your teeth tingle, as if nibbling lightning. Egyptian kings imported this. He murmurs, stirring the dregs with a pine twig. Cost 10 slaves per ounce. Cleopatra drank it before meeting Caesar, though historians still argue whether it was medicine or preemptive humiliation. The bitterness fades, replaced by cool mint and something primal, fresh-dug soil after rain. Your knuckles unclench. You hadn't realized they were fists. The hearth's crackle slows. Each pop syncs with your pulse. He leans close, whiskey breath and wood smoke. Feel it. That's linden blossom unknotting your ribs, the same stuff Napoleon's troops smoked when their muskets froze. Light fractures the room splinters into prism shards. Your fingers pass through the cup, now translucent as mountain ice. The shepherd's voice warps, distant thunder underwater. 18th century sailors mistook this effect for madness. Through their officers, overboard turned out. They just needed vitamin C time drips, molten and slow. You count 3 heartbeats, each a cathedral bell shaking your bones. A flavor surfaces unbidden. Not taste, memory, your mother's voice humming as she peeled apples, the sting of a scraped knee winter nights when the furnace died. The shepherd nods, as if listening with you. Yarrow root drags up buried things better than a drunk uncle at solstice. Reality snaps back harsh as a snapped bowstring. The cup sits empty, a single petal clinging to the rim. Your tongue feels laundered, scrubbed raw by light. He takes the vessel, wipes it with his sleeve. Good, you didn't scream. Had a Hungarian prince once wept for his childhood nanny. Fire pops, a log collapses in on itself. Outside, the storm has hushed, leaving only the drip-drip of Eve's cring. He tosses a sprig into the flames. It crackles violet. That's mugwort. Medieval witches burned it to walk in others' dreams. Useless unless you enjoy hallucinating tax collectors. Your legs wobble, floorboards tilt like a ship's deck. He steadies you, calloused palm hotter than the brew. Sit. The spin lasts 9 breaths. Breathe through the 9th, or you'll puke like a Carthaginian after a feast. You count, each exhale scrubbing residue from your veins. The air thickens, scent of bergamot and buried parchment. He rummages a jar, pulls out a wrinkled berry. Eat this. Juniper counteracts the yarrow's guilt trips. Tastes like a pine tree's regrets. It bursts tart, then sweet, then like nothing at all. Sound sharpens, the creak of settling wood, the skitter of a moth avoiding flame. He grunts approval, stokes the embers. Greeks thought juniper warded off plague. They were wrong, but it does make gin. Moonlight slants through a cracked shutter, silvering the herb bundles overhead. Their shadows braid themselves across your lap. The shepherd stretches, his spine crackling like kindling. Sleep now. Tomorrow we hunt wild ginger. It's like digging up dragon bones, but smells better. You open your mouth, questions crowding like market beggars. He silences you with a look, tosses a fleece over your shoulders. It reeks of goat and ancient campfires. Save it. Brews speaking through your pores, I'll listen tomorrow. A final log crumbles, throwing shadows that dance a tarantella. Your thoughts unravel, will spun too thin. Somewhere a owl mourns, somewhere the village sleeps. Here the hut holds its breath, and you dissolve into the quiet. Hooves shatter the dark's throat, a staccato crunch of shale and iron shoes. You jolt awake, fleece slipping as the door groans. Wind sweeps in carrying snowflakes and a man's phlegmy cough. Apologies, rasps the visitor, his beard glazed with ice. Goats got the lung rattles, worse than my ex-wife's snoring. The shepherd lurches up, a bear stirred mid-hibernation. He shoves a kettle onto coals, its belly already singing. You note the intruder's hands, raw as butchered meat, clutching a wicker basket. Whorehound, the shepherd grunts, nodding at the bundle. Not the leaf tops, you picked the lazy ones. The goatherd scowls, dropping his cargo. Blame the snowdrifts. Nearly lost a boot to a marmot hole. Firelight carves his face, a topography of burst capillaries and regret. You glimpse the basket's contents, gnarled roots caked in frozen mud. Historians still argue whether 4th century plague doctors used whorehound to mask corpse stench or actually believed it purified air. The shepherd crushes leaves in his palm. Sweet musk floods the hut. Boil these with honey, and pig fat. Greek physicians prescribed it for coughs. Hippocrates swore by it, but he also thought womb disorders came from hysterical wandering. He tosses the paste into the kettle. It hisses like a spurned cat. Add licorice root. The goatherd wheezes, doubled over. Wife says it soothes. Your wife also thinks garnets cure gout. The shepherd snaps, yet reaches for a clay jar. Licorice is sweeter than a Venetian courtesan won't fix shattered lungs. Steam coils upward, forming vaporous tendrils that snag your sleeve. They pulse faintly green like swamp gas or childhood nightmares. The sick man coughs, a wet, gurgling staccato. You press back into shadows, half afraid his ribs will detonate. The shepherd mutters an Alpine curse, adds a fistful of thyme. Medieval barbers through this, in wounds drove out demons, along with the pus. The brew darkens, motor oil swirling in a tar pit. Outside, a goat bleats weakly. The goatherd winces. Made her a coat from my spare tunic, still shivers like a sinner in chapel. Goats invented drama, the shepherd grumbles. Remember the one that faked a broken leg for extra oats. He ladles steaming liquid into a chipped tin cup. Drink. Tastes like a forest fire, but it'll glue those lungs shut. The man obeys, gagging mid-sip. His eyes bulge, veins mapping crimson rivers across the whites. Christ's bones, did you poison me? Poison's extra, the shepherd says. That's just motherwort biting your pride. A beat and pinches of cayenne. Ottoman horsemen snorted it to stay alert. You'll survive. You watch the steam snakes thicken, now braiding around the rafters. Their edges fray into spectral shapes. A gaunt figure hunched over a loom, a child chasing a kite. The goatherd gasps, a seal breaking surface. Color seeps back into his cheeks, rosy as a tavern harlot's rouge. Saints alive heirs, not knives anymore. Temporary, warns the shepherd. Brew lasts till next cockcrow. Come spring, hunt wild garlic, rub it on her chest, unless you want to bury her. The man nods, tossing a coin onto the hearthstone. It lands with a dull clink, Charlemagne's bony profile eaten by rust. Kept this from better times. Spent 10 years hauling salt, this bought half a mule. Mules die, the shepherd says, kicking the coin into ash. Your nanny goat survives. That's interest enough. Wind howls, a reminder of the trek home. The visitor hesitates, eyes lingering on your face. You're new here. Word of advice: don't drink the spiderwort tea. Makes you see uncivilized things. He vanishes into the blizzard, a cough trailing like a tattered banner. The shepherd prods the dying fire. His first wife, choked on a fish bone, swore he saw her ghost knitting. With willow reeds spiderwort opens doors, best left painted shut. You study the remaining brew, its surface quivering with each draught. The steam creatures now twist into something familiar, a woman's hand waving the curve of a river you once swam. Moonlight bleeds through the smoke hole, cutting the vision in half. A log pops, the spell snaps. The shepherd yawns, stretching limbs that crack like walnut shells. Need 3 things to heal beasts: ruthlessness, patience, and a strong stomach. Humans, add flattery and something sharp to bite down on. Silence settles, thick as butter churned in winter. Somewhere beyond the mountains, a wolf mourns its insomnia. Here the herbs whisper in their jars. You count 9 breaths, 10, 50, until even the shadows grow yawns. Embers spiral upward, each fleck joining constellations scratched into soot-blackened beams. The shepherd tilts his head, firelight etching his Adam's apple. See those 7 smudges. Monks called them herba stellata, star herbs. Brewed poisons under their glow, said it purified intentions. His finger trails the smoke, drawing invisible sigils. You squint. The roof's smoke hole frames a slice of sky, Orion's belt askew, like a drunkard's suspenders. Arabs charted those same stars. For spice roots medieval apothecaries copied their maps, stole the patterns, not the names. He spits into the fire, a sizzle of contempt. Call that one Al-Jabbar the giant. We kneel to different devils, same sky. Frost creeps under the door, needling your ankles. You notice ash symbols on the hearthstone, a spiral, a cross, something like a teapot. Your recipe book. Memory fails, he mutters. Ash remembers. A coal pops, scattering the teapot into oblivion. 3rd century brewmasters etched prescriptions on turtle shells, wouldn't trust parchment. Burned too easy like Roman generals. He rubs his thumb raw against a charred log. Had a client once, merchant from Augsburg. Paid me in saffron threads to read his future in cinders. Drowned in a barley silo 2 weeks later. A gust tangles the smoke, stars blur. The shepherd snorts. Not all endings are lessons. You mimic his finger tracing. Ash cool under your nail. The shapes feel familiar, the curve of a cauldron, the jagged line of the eastern ridge. Historians still argue whether Viking navigators used smoke patterns to steer, or just blamed wrong turns on mead. He uncorks a flask, sharp sweetness cuts the air. Cherry liqueur stolen from a Bavarian duke's cellar. His steward swore it cured gout, died mid-piss. A sip, his grin turns feral. Traded him yarrow for it, real yarrow. Not that donkey piss they sell in Innsbruck. The liquor burns your throat, hot syrup, and regret. Stars pulse brighter, or is your vision blurring? The smoke hole now frames Ursa Major, its ladle tipped to pour darkness. Farmers planted turnips, by its handle said, it made roots stubborn as mules. only worked if you sang to the seeds. He nods at your expression. Tried it once, sang a tavern ballad. Turnips came up stunted and reeking of cheap wine. Embers settle on your sleeve, tiny novas dying in wool. The shepherd flicks one off. Careful. Persian fire eaters used those to fake miracles, swallowed 'em to cure bellyaches. Real cure, fig paste and lies. His laugh rasps like a saw on ice. You point to a dense star cluster, 5 points forming a crooked crown. That one, he stills. Dihexanchrone witch's crown. My mother's tailies claimed it was where they tossed failed curses. A beat, found it once on a midnight hike near Murano. Tripped over a rock, looked up, and there it hung. Nearly pissed myself. The fire dims, shadows eat the ash cliffs. He stabs the coals. Monks wrote star maps in their brew logs, a Gregorian chants in one column, constellations in the other. Pages warped from steam, like God ironed the ink. His voice softens. Saw one in Salzburg Abbey moon, phases paired with nettle harvest dates. Abbot claimed nettle stings under a waning moon, humbled the flesh. Did it. Left him bedridden for a week, but his rheumatism vanished. A shrug. Divinities, just pain with decent timing. Your finger traces Cassiopeia, the boastful queen. Ash coats your fingertip. Guide or guilt trip. Depends. He sips liqueur. Ever seen a comet drunk on sassafras tea? Makes you rethink the stars. Draft snakes through the hut, carrying a lone wolf's howl. The shepherd tilts his flask toward the smoke hole. Sumatran sailors used star moss to navigate monsoons. Storied it, glowed brighter than Polaris. Never verified, since moss-eating sailors rarely return. Silence spreads a stain on wool. Embers fade to gray ghosts. Somewhere, an owl dissects the dark. He stands, knees crackling like kindling. Bed over there. A nod to the flea-bitten palate. Dream of star herbs if you like. But don't shout if Saturn starts lecturing on dandelion wine. You lie down, spine protesting. Through the smoke hole, Ursa Major drags its claws westward. The shepherd's breath slows, a guttural lullaby. Ash symbols linger behind your eyelids. Spirals, crosses, warnings. Cold nips your nose. You pull the fleece higher. He mutters in his sleep, something about Virgo and vinegar. Stars wheel, embers die. The hut holds its breath. Morning light stabs through the hut's smoke hole, dust motes swarming like hungover fireflies. The shepherd drops a twisted stalk into your lap, roots coiled around a fist-sized stone. Wolfgrass. Chew slow, unless you enjoy gagging on fortitude. The stem snaps between your teeth. Bitterness floods your sinuses. Tastes like burnt toast scraped across a glacier. He chuckles at your grimace. Roman legions carried it during the Dacian Wars. Said it let them march 3 days without water. Also gave them diarrhea, histories full of trade-offs. You spit a frayed fiber into the fire. Why's it gripping the rock? Survival. He pries the roots free, each tendril pressure cracked from clinging. Grows where even lichens quit. Medieval knaves tucked it into love potions, reckoned stubborn roots transferred to stubborn hearts. A beetle scuttles across his boot. He crushes it absently. Worked as well as you'd expect, the second chew releases earthy undertones, moss and iron filings. Your tongue numbs. He nods. That's the resilience. German miners used it for toothache until their guild banned it in 1502. Too many collapsed tunnels. From numb tongues, from miners chewing instead of working. He tosses the rootless stone into a corner. It thuds against a moldy cheese wheel. Wives brewed wolfgrass tea during sieges, stretched barley stalks. Tasted like despair, but kept kids' bellies full. Wind screeches through a chink in the wall, a dissonant flute solo. You eye the gnawed stalk. Any good recipes, boil it with honeycomb, sweetens the grit. Or don't. Some cravings aren't meant to be tamed. He plucks a dried sprig from the rafters. Its flowers resemble wolves' teeth. Hungarian shepherds wove these into collars, thought it made use birth twin lambs. Ended up with triple the coyote attacks. The numbness spreads to your jaw. You mumble, side effect. Predators crave bitterness too. He flicks the sprig into the flames. It writhes like a dying scorpion. Ottoman healers prescribed it for melancholy, until sultans noticed their concubines grinning through executions. Hard to maintain an empire without healthy dread. Sunlight glares off the copper cauldron. Your shadow licks the soot-stained walls. The shepherd rummages through a clay jar, extracts a root bundle tied with human hair. Found this in a Bronze Age burial mound, wolfgrass, braided around a child's skeleton. Historians still argue whether it was medicine or a snack for the afterlife. You swallow another fiber, it claws its way down. Which do you believe? Both. He tucks the bundle behind his ear, a macabre decoration. Grief's the original multitasker. A goat bleats outside, its complaint syncs with your stomach's growl. The shepherd opens the door, blinding whiteness. Snowblindness fades to reveal slopes armored in ice. He points to a stony outcrop. Wolfgrass thrives there, where the mountain's ribs poke through. Harvest after the first thaw when its rage is freshest. You pocket the half-chewed stalk. It burns through wool. Teach the harvesting song. No songs, just silence and a sharp knife. He tests a blade on his thumb. A bead of blood sugars the air. Speak while cutting, the roots retreat. They disdain gossip. The cold tightens its fist around the hut. You breathe through your nose. Frost glazes each hair. He gestures to the outcrop. Go, taste the mountain's stubbornness if you're done coddling your tongue. Snow crunches underfoot, each step a betrayal. The wolfgrass patch quivers, a nest of arthritic fingers. You kneel, knees scream against stone. The knife slips, slices your palm. Blood soaks the roots. They squirm, recoiling from the warmth. The shepherd's voice barks from afar. Told you silence and steel. No offerings. Your bloodied hand retreats. The roots relax. One clean cut, the stalk falls. Its sap smells like gunpowder and forgotten promises. Back at the hut, he pours juniper liquor over your wound. Chased 16th century Scottish raiders with wolfgrass, salve infected every scratch. Turns out they preferred dying to smelling like pickled onions. The stalk steeps in your tin cup, black tendrils ink the water. You sip, it's like swallowing a landslide. Heartbeats pound in your ears, the roof slats ripple, or is the hut floating? He smirks. Felt that, did you? Breton witches drank it before divining, said clarity required vertigo. Mostly got migraines and bad decisions. Dusk bleeds across the valley, shadows breed in corners. The stalk's dregs cling to the cup, a miniature swamp. The shepherd fans out 7 wolfgrass stems, their roots interlock into a star. Found this pattern in a Carthaginian tomb alongside jars of honeyed locusts, never deciphered the meaning. Maybe here lies a weirdo. His snort startles the fire. Or beware of imitations. The roots blacken in the heat, their star collapses. You exhale, the air tastes of burnt cinnamon and unanswered questions. He tosses the charred remains out the door. Sleep. Tomorrow's lesson's worse. Worse than wolfgrass. Moss. He kicks the door shut. It argues back. You lie down, jaw still buzzing. Through the smoke hole, the wolf's crown constellation glimmers. Its light feels sticky like sap on skin. The shepherd's snores vibrate the flea-bitten pillow. Somewhere, a root pushes through stone, rewriting the mountain's grudges. Your dreams taste of iron. Wind screams through the hut's cracks, a feral chorus, rattling your frost-rimed teeth. The shepherd slams the door, snowflakes swirl like shredded papyrus. Frostbites nibbling your left pinky. Chew this. He stuffs your mouth with fuzzy leaves. Feverfew's bitterness curdles your spit. Medieval monks grew these petals between cabbage rows, dual-purpose gardens feeding bodies and fevers. You gag. Tastes like dirt's angry cousin. Victorian ice harvesters swallowed it raw, kept fingers from snapping off like icicles. He grabs your hand, skin mottled as spoiled milk. His thumbs press the necrotic spots. White gives way to fire. Your howl shakes soot from the rafters. He nods. Good. Still feelin' something. Didn't lose you to the white silence. That's the mountain's sweetest murder. Blizzard fists the walls, timber groans. He crushes feverfew petals with a mortar, pungent oil, stains the pestle. 17th century midwives rubbed this on stillborns, said it helped mothers release their grip. Historians still argue whether it numbed skin or hearts. You flex your aching hand. Did it work? Depends who outlived whom. He mixes the paste with lard grease sizzles on the hearthstone. Spread this on your toes too. Krakow cobblers swore it prevented gangrene, then died of foot, rot at 40. Snowdrifts devour the window. The mortar trembles, his gnarled hands steady yours. Press, don't smear. Pretend you're gentling a spooked mare. Your fingertips sink into the poultice. Warmth oozes like a slow apology. He tears a linen strip, threads whisper of Egyptian flax. Tutankhamun's mummy had feverfew pollen in his wrappings. Either his priests loved him, or really hated his allergies. Wind throttles the chimney. Smoke retreats, cold colonizes the hut. He knots the bandage, a sailor's hitch. Found a frozen Roman courier, once a feverfew pouch clutched in his fist. Message long gone, just a mumbled phrase about Vercingetorix's ghost. Still wonder what was urgent enough to die for. You flex your wrapped hand. Blood surges back like a scolded child. Why not use wolfgrass? Frost's too crisp for bitterness. Needs something floral, feverfew lies sweeter. He throws another log on the fire. Resin weeps amber tears. Hungarian horse thieves wore feverfew crowns, believed it hid their heat from royal hounds. Spoiler, it didn't. The storm howls higher. He unwraps a putrid cheese, nods at your grimace. Eat. Shivering burns more calories than a peasant revolt. Mold blooms blue on the rind. It tastes like existential despair. Your chattering jaw unhinges. Any good feverfew recipes, boil it with rose hips, makes a tea that dulls migraines and conversation. He gestures to your bandages. Change those at dawn. Rot sets in faster than guilt at a confession. Ice sheathes the water bucket. You chip the surface. A shard stabs your palm. Blood beads, feverfew paste turns rust red. He tusks. Tourists don gnaws at the blizzard's edges. He forces you outside. Knee-deep snow swallows your legs. Breathe through the feverfew, it'll thin the air. Petals stick to your lips. Each inhale tastes of greenhouse defiance. He kicks a snowdrift. Dig. First lessons free. You claw through ice, knuckles split. Feverfew seeps into cuts. Numbness spreads like gossip. His shadow looms. Faster. Frost's got 50 ways to kill you here. I'll only teach 10. A frozen stem snaps in your grip. White roots dangle like spider legs. Feverfew. Mountain's apology note. He pockets the root, grins at the purple horizon. Swiss nuns planted these near outhouses, masked the stink with pollen. Smart women. Your toes scream. He tosses a wool sock crusted with decades of sweat. Double layer. And quit limping. Self-pity attracts yetis. The hut's door appears, a mirage wavering in the snow blindness. He blocks your path. Last test. Recite the 3 frostbite stages. White, burning, black, romantic. He pours glacial water down your collar. Redness tingling, then numbness. Remember, death always starts as a tingle. Firelight feels foreign, a hostile sun. He rebandages your hand, feverfews, scent now a grudging ally. Napoleon's troops ate it, like parsley thawed it, strengthened marching lungs. Ended up wheezing through Moscow's ashes. Wind retreats, silence pools in your ears. He stirs cedar resin into melted snow. Drink. Hydration's the difference between a corpse and a crappy poet. The resin clings to your throat, a tree's final argument. Embers crackle, faces shimmer in the coals. He tosses a feverfew stem into the flames. It curls into a fist. Celts buried feverfew with warriors to cool their souls, fever for battle. Either way, corpses don't argue. Moonlight claws through the smoke hole. You curl into flea-ridden furs. Feverfew numbs your lips to vows. The shepherd sharpens his knife. Steel hisses a lullaby. Somewhere, a root pushes through permafrost. Somewhere, a frostbitten earlobe snaps off unheard. You dream of Victorian iceboxes, and the things Feverfew won't let you forget. Dawn cracks like a dropped egg, pale yolk light seeping through smoke-stained windows. A knock rattles the door, 3 sharp raps, and a sob. The shepherd sighs his breath, fogging the iron latch. Dress rehearsal for tragedy. Let's rehearse. She enters cloaked in black wool, face shadowed by a hood carved from grief. Her hands clutch a birchbark cup, juniper berries, oozing purple-black juice. They stain her palms like wee-cold bruises. 12th century Londoners burned juniper in plague streets, thought the smoke choked demons. The shepherd takes her offering, berries plump with fermented sorrow. Took 50 dead husbands to realize it just choked everyone. You stir the cauldron, its surface refuses to ripple. The widow's shoulders tremble, a silent quake under wool. He tosses the berries, in the brew goes tardark. Steam coils upward, twisting into shapes too human. Venetian gondoliers chewed juniper, believed it strengthened their serenading lungs. He prods the woman's cloak. Show her. Bony fingers emerge, gripping a locket etched with ivy. Inside, a miniature portrait flaking at the edges. A soldier's eyes stare out, painted iris cracked like a dried lake bed. The brew hisses. Smoke forms a hand reaching for the locket. The widow recoils, her hood falls. Silver streaks her hair, ravens caught in snowfall. Bavarian, widows wore juniper crowns at funerals, kept the graves cold from nesting in their wombs. He ladles steaming liquid into a clay mug. Drink, unless you'd rather keep those tears frozen. She hesitates, lips parting for the first time. A moth-wing whisper escapes. Will it undo? Grief's not a knot. It's a stain. He presses the mug inward, porcelain kisses her teeth. But this makes it glow pretty in the dark. Laughter rattles the rafters, a saltbush cough. The widow drinks. Her throat convulses, 5 desperate swallows. For 7 breaths, nothing. Then her back arches, steam spiraling from her nostrils. The locket shrieks against her chest, soldier's eyes weeping rust. She vomits shadows, a inkblot mass pooling on the hearthstone. The fire recoils. Historians still argue whether Viking pyres used juniper, or if the sagas just liked alliteration. The shepherd pokes the shadow puddle with a poker. It whimpers. The widow gasps, fresh tears cutting through berry-stained cheeks. He promised we'd retire to Innsbruck. Promises are weather vanes spin with the wind. He tosses salt on the shadow. It winks out. Your man died, coughing up Magdeburg's dirt. Not exactly pension plans. She lunges for the locket's chain, yanking till blood pearls her neck. The shepherd slaps her wrist, a dry cattail snap. Dead's dead, but his boots, sold for 7 silver coins. Priorities. You shift closer. Heat from the cauldron, pulsing against your thigh. The widow's tears hit the brew, each droplet hissing lyre in the steam. Medieval German brides carried juniper to test their virginity. He winks at you. Rigorous scientific method. If the berries sprouted, so did her purity. Her wail shakes the herb bundles. Feverfew petals snow down, sticking to the shadow stain. The shepherd collects them, tucks one behind your ear. Widow's herbs burn brighter. Remember that. The brew thickens, a syrup smelling of pine solstice and betrayal. The woman collapses, hands clawing ash. I kept his razors in my bodice for 3 winters. Romantic. Also explains the bloodstains. He refills her mug, juniper pulp swirling like a storm. Finish it. Unless you prefer half mourning, like Victorian widows who dyed their dresses gray after year 2. Cowards. She chugs Adam's apple a pendulum. The steam forms a face now. Soldier's lips, moving soundlessly. You touch her shoulder. Feverfew pollen dusts your fingertips. She convulses, a raven's cough tearing loose. Something clinks in the ashes, a wedding band warped by heat. The shepherd fishes it out, blows off soot. 1764 Viennese silver. Melt values crap, sentimental values bankrupt. Keep it as a paperweight. Dawn bleeds into morning, the brew reduced to black sludge. The widow stands hood drawn, her locket hangs open, portrait blank. He scrapes the cauldron, residue tarnishing the spoon. Toss this on your garden. Juniper ashes hatch the best lies. She stumbles into the light, footprints trailing violet puddles. The shepherd watches her go, face carved from alderwood. Spanish nuns distill juniper into ink, write confessional letters that burn after reading. He sniffs the empty cup. Grief's just love with a stammer. Give it a year, she'll remarry a butcher. Wind sweeps berry husks across the floor. You kneel to gather them. Each one whispers a battlefield coordinate. The shepherd kicks them into the fire, brief screams. Your fingertips brush the shadow stain. It licks your skin. Cold floods your wrist, a winter river's kiss. The shepherd slaps your hand away. Fool, that's not her sorrow anymore. Sunlight dissects the smoke, exposing dust motes shaped like unanswerable questions. Somewhere, a locket clicks shut. Somewhere, a widower sips juniper tea and forgets his own name. The cauldron cools its surface, hardening into a mirror. You peer in, a face flickers behind yours, berry juice bleeding from its eyes. He covers the pot with a wolf pelt. Don't worry, it's shy around optimists. Feverfew numbs your tongue, but the juniper's bite lingers. Bitter, sweet, regret's aftertaste always is. Ice cracks like a gunshot. You jolt upright in your straw bed. The shepherd's already at the door, boots crusted with mud that smells of promises. Up, poet. The mountains shattering its own teeth. Morning light fractures through icicles, each drip a metronome, counting winter's last breaths. You step outside. Frostbitten air claws your throat. The shepherd tosses you a basket woven from willow ribs. Snowdrops first. Their roots are shy before noon. A brook giggles under thinning ice, meltwater sprinting over pebbles, polished by centuries of escape. You kneel where the hut's shadow ends earth, exhaling a green sigh. Milk-white blooms tremble their petals, cupping sunlight like stolen coins. 14th century French monks called them Candlemas bells, brewed into teas for broken hearts. The shepherd crushes a petal between thumb and knife. Juice stains his skin, ghostly milk. Also believed snowdrops sprouted where angels sneezed. Theology's never been subtle. Your fingers numb as you pluck stems, each snap echoing in your knuckles. The basket fills with cold perfection, petals flawless as a widow's final lie. He snorts. Village girls once ate snowdrop bulbs to fade love marks, boys' teeth on their necks, that sort of thing. A wink. Spoiler, it just gave them the shakes. The brook's song deepens, a gurgling crescendo. Ice chunks embark downstream, glass ships fleeing the sun. You spot something wedged between rocks, a rusted helmet crusted with river scum. 30 years, war relic. The shepherd prods it with his staff, some poor bastard's skull probably still rattling inside. Historians still argue whether soldiers ate snowdrops for courage or just desperation. Wind shifts, carrying the metallic tang of thawing ore veins. The shepherd freezes, nose tilted like a compass needle. Hear that? A creaking groan ripples through the valley, glaciers shrugging off their sarcophagi. Snowdrop stems quiver in your basket, tiny bells, ringing silent alarms. Hungarian miners called that sound Earth's hungover bellyache. He kneels, presses a palm to mud. Spring's not birth. It's the mountain vomiting up all it couldn't digest. You pocket a bulb smooth as a sleepwalker's pupil. He notices. Planning to grow your own regrets. They'll bloom in November, just in time to disappoint you. Sun climbs. The hut's shadow shortens into a stubby dagger. You return to find the cauldron already singing, snowdrops swirling in meltwater. The shepherd adds a fistful of salt, for the tears were too stubborn to cry. Steam carries the scent of failed resolutions, iceberg lettuce, and rust. He ladles liquid into clay cups. Drink. It's tradition to swallow spring in one gulp. The brew bites, a frozen river down your throat. Your vision blurs. Suddenly you're 9 years old, crushing snowdrops on your school slate. Chalk dust and petal pulp, a potion for summoning bicycle dragons. The shepherd sips slower, eyes on the brook. Bulgarian widows planted snowdrops in dead men's boots. Claimed it helped them walk kinder in the afterlife. A beat. Never worked. Sunset comes early, the mountain drinking daylight greedily. You arrange the last snowdrops around the hearth, their white outshining the ash. He grunts approval. Good. Now the mountain thinks we're sincere. Dusk bleeds into starless black, the thaw's sweat glazing every surface. Somewhere downstream, the helmet lodges against a boulder, water whispering through its eye slits. A snowdrop root brushes the rust, tendrils probing. Gentle as a widow's midnight vigil, the cauldron cools its surface, filming over like cataracts. You dream of boots overflowing with flowers, their roots twitching like Schrödinger's heartbeat. When you wake, The snowdrops are singing, but their lyrics taste like somebody else's apology. The bear's claws scrape the door, a sound like knives sharpening stones. You freeze tea sloshing over your wrist into a Rorschach blot of panic. The shepherd grabs your elbow. Breathe through your nose. It confuses their sense of prey. Wood creaks. A splintered claw wedges through the gap. Rotting meat breath floods the hut last week's venison, or something less fortunate. The shepherd yanks a dried lavender bundle from the rafters. Purple dust snows onto the hearth. Roman legions stuffed their pillows with this stuff, kept lions from nibbling toes during desert naps. He lobs the bundle at the crack. Embers ignite the herbs. Smoke curls into an amethyst serpent. The bear snorts, a wet, indignant sound. You half expect a complaint about the catering. Pause, retreat, then return with a two-handed slam. The door spasms on its hinges. Persistent bastard. The shepherd roots through clay jars. Victorian bear handlers rubbed lavender oil on their whips. Didn't stop maulings, but at least the corpses smelled tidy. You fumble for the fire poker. He slaps your hand away. What ray you, a medieval jouster? Fetch that copper bowl. And the honey. Ice glazes the window, distorting the bear into a brown smear of rage. You dump honey into the bowl, fingers sticking to the spoon. He sprinkles in chili flakes, Hungarian beekeeper's trick. Bears hate capsaicin. It burns their existential dread. Tossing the mixture outside, he slams the door. A wet crunch follows the bear, investigating this sudden gift. Silence, then a roar that shakes soot from the chimney. Did it work? Your voice cracks like kindling. The shepherd peers through a knothole. Now it's angry and has a snack. Pine resin drips into the fire, scent sharp as a guillotine blade. The lavender smoke thins, revealing claw marks carved into the doorframe. Each groove glistens with sap blood. He lights another bundle. Swiss monks grew lavender labyrinths around their granaries, claimed the plants, confused evil's GPS. Historians still argue whether lavender's power lies in scent or humanity's desperate need to believe in gentle solutions. The bear rams the door, iron hinges screaming. A jar of yarrow tonic shatters. Golden liquid bleeds across the floorboards, the hut's warped reflection grinning up at you. Plan C, the shepherd shrugs off his sheepskin coat. Ever worn a bear's pajamas? No, and I won't start now. He flaps the coat like a matador's cape. Alpine shepherds used to sleep in bear dens, stole their body heat, got a 70% mortality rate, but the survivors wrote terrific poetry. You're about to ask what Plan D involves when the bear sneezes, a seismic blast that rattles your molars. Lavender pollen drifts in through the cracks. One purple mote lands on your tongue, tastes like a Parisian brothel's curtains. The scratching stops. A huff, then retreating footsteps crunching snow with theatrical disappointment. The shepherd waits 3 full minutes before opening the door. Moonlight reveals a honey-smeared snout print and a single lavender sprig impaled on a claw mark. He plucks it free. Had a tax collector like this once. Same attitude. Dawn leaks across the valley, the bear's shadow shrinking into the tree line. You pour 2 stingy shots of elderberry gin, hands steady now. He toasts the vanishing predator. 19th century circus, bears drank rum-laced milk before shows. Made them wobbly, crowds thought they were dancing. A sip. Sicilian bandits used lavender to mask corpse smell. Pair that with the rum anecdote, you've got a decent cocktail party bit. You stash the remaining lavender under your pillow. Something clinks, a bare claw lodged in the floorboards. It's the size of a croissant. The shepherd pockets it. Keep it. Next time you're undercharged for ale, just leave this on the counter. Wind riffles through the herb bundles, their whispers almost melodic. Somewhere downhill, the bear licks chilly honey from its claws and plots better life choices. The shepherd kicks the door shut. It groans, a perfect imitation of the bear's final sigh. Sunlight glazes the apiary, a dozen hives squatting in a wildflower clearing. Their hum harmonizes with your tinnitus from last night's bear serenade. The shepherd unlatches a hive lid. Bees cloud around his head, a living crown of cursive gold. Medieval monks always kept a skep in the chapel, he says, puffing smoke from a smoldering sage bundle, claimed their honey tasted like answered prayers. We'll test that theory. He hands you a veil. It smells like cobwebs and shame. Tuck your cuffs. Swiss beekeeper in 1742 died because a bee crawled up his pant leg and stung his zeal. You regret every life choice leading to this moment. Honeycomb glistens, hexagons sagging under liquid amber. The shepherd scrapes a frame. Venetian glassmakers stole hive designs for cathedral windows. Looks divine, but good luck heating a church with body heat. A bee lands on your wrist. You channel Buddhist monk energy. Your pulse screams in Morse code. They like fear sweat, he says. Adds spice. Scooping raw honey onto a leaf, he points to a knot in the nearest pine. See that resin? Beethoven used to chew propolis while composing. Called it honeyed earwax. Third Symphony's finale. 40% tree sap by weight. You decline the snack. Historians still argue whether ancient hives produced better honey, or if nostalgia's just glucose with delusions. Bees swarm your veil, a living lattice of grievances. The shepherd ignores them. Bend your knees, hives heavier than a banker's conscience. You lift, arms trembling, as honey drips into the pail. Ottoman surgeons packed wounds with honey and spider webs. Mortality rate dropped 30%. Or the survivors lied to avoid more spider webs. The meadow purrs, a breeze combing through clover. He nudges a hive plug with his boot. Here's the pact. Take only what overflows, leave the winter shares. Replant what you trample, and next full moon, a bee zigzags between you, an ambivalent referee. Pour oat milk where the hive stood. Not cow, not goat, oat. Bees are lactose intolerant revolutionaries. You nod. The shepherd slaps your back, a friendly gesture that almost fractures your spine. Good. Greek heroes swore oaths on hives. Break the deal, and they'd send assassin bees. Mythical. Try telling that to Plato's swollen face. He extracts a honeycomb shard. Taste it. It's flavored with heather, self-doubt, and 3% marmot urine. You hesitate. Kidding. Probably. The honey hits your tongue, floral electricity fused with a whisper of wood smoke. Your vow settles, a stone in the gut. The hives murmur approval, or maybe indigestion. As you leave, the shepherd tosses a wax clump at your head. For your next candle. Burns cleaner than kerosene and smells like this morning's bad decisions. Dusk melts the meadow into a Monet smear. Somewhere beyond the tree line, a bear licks phantom, chilly from its claws. The hives shrink behind you, their buzz fading into twilight's white noise. You touch the wax in your pocket. It's softer than expected, like frozen moonlight, or the silence between two people who have survived a winter in the mountains. Damp wool clings to your shoulders, the kind of cold that seeps through mittens. Through the hut's warped window, you spot movement, a small shadow tethered to a larger one. The door opens with a groan you've come to recognize as the mountain's nightly gossip. A woman pushes inside, her mittened hand clutching a boy's. His cough sounds like a moth trapped in a jar, all fluttering. No force. The shepherd rises, his joints protesting like unoiled hinges. He's had the silent sickness since the solstice. The woman says, unwinding a scarf crusted with ice. You note the boy's fingernails, half-moons bluer than a robin's egg. Firelight licks a dented tin cup as the shepherd prepares his arsenal. 13th century Venetian doctors prescribed powdered swallow beaks for weak lungs. He mutters, crushing dried coltsfoot between granite stones. Worked as well as most medieval medicine, meaning not at all. You glance at the boy, his breath hitching like a broken clock. The woman peels layers from his narrow frame. 4 undershirts, each thinner than a moth's wing. Historians still argue whether 17th century lung jackets lined with badger fat cured consumption, or just made everyone smell like regret. The shepherd adds a pine resin glob to simmering water. German nuns swore by squirrel-tail tea for night coughs, drank it until their teeth stained yellow, and songbirds followed them. He winks at the boy, no response. You're tasked with grinding horehound, its bitter scent clawing your sinuses. The pestle feels heavier tonight. Every mortar crunch echoes the boy's shallow breathing. As steam twists into spectral shapes above the cauldron, the shepherd hums a tune you haven't heard before, something older than the frost outside. Alpine lullabies used to include herb measurements, the woman says, patting her son's knee. Mothers sang recipes instead of nursery rhymes. Easier to remember than a scribe's messy handwriting. The boy stares at your hands, your nails still green from yesterday's yarrow harvest. When you offer a honeyed thyme sprig, he accepts it like a sacrament. Chews slowly, swallows convulsively. He hasn't eaten since the thaw. The woman whispers. You notice her own lips are cracked, a mother's fasting written in chapped script. The shepherd pours steaming liquid into a cup shaped like a curled leaf. Roman soldiers carried mullein torches into battle. Smoke cleared their lungs after breathing campfire fumes. Doubled as a weapon if you gagged the enemy. He blows across the surface. Drink deep, little stone. This brews better than a legion's asthma cure. The boy hesitates, eyes tracking the herb bundles dangling above. His cough escapes again, a sound that could snap a lute string. You remember the widow's juniper berries from last week, their dusky sweetness still haunting the mortar. Without asking, you add a pinch to his cup. The shepherd raises an eyebrow, but says nothing. First sip, the boy grimaces. Second sip, his shoulders drop a fraction. By the fifth, color bleeds back into his cheeks like watercolors on parchment. The woman presses her forehead to the shepherd's knuckles. He endures it for 3 seconds before retreating. Politeness, you've learned, makes him itch worse than nettle rash. Whorehound, you say, pointing to the remaining paste. Greeks called it the singer's plant. Actors chewed it before tragedies to prevent voice cracks during death scenes. The boy's fingers brush the jar, testing its warmth. Outside, the wind pranks the shutters. The fire pops like a lazy chaperone. Later, after the woman bundles her son into a cloak lined with black market rabbit fur, the shepherd scrapes the cauldron's dregs into a bowl. We'll add licorice root tomorrow. Swiss cheesemakers in the 1600s thought it prevented cow pneumonia. Their herds died anyway, but the milk tasted like dessert. You scrub colt's foot, resin from the table cracks. The boy's cup sits abandoned, a honeyed ghost clinging to its rim. He'll be back, the shepherd says, poking the embers. Silent coughs are stubborn. They outlive empires. Ask the Byzantines. His tone suggests a joke. His eyes don't. Moths orbit the lone candle, their shadows waltzing across the boy's empty seat. You pocket the whorehound jar, just in case. The mountain growls first, a bass note vibrating your molars. Snow hisses downslope, a white dragon shedding scales. The hut's timbers shriek door, bolted against the roaring dark. You freeze, mug of licorice tea halfway to your lips. The shepherd grabs your wrist, steam sloshes onto embers. Avalanche breath, he barks. Don't let it smell fear. Flames gutter as the world shakes. Bundled herbs sway, ghostly dancers in green. You recall reading how 19th century Zermatt guides carried time in their boots, allegedly calmed panicked tourists during storms. It never mentioned teeth-chattering terror, turning your knees to gruel. The cauldron trembles, its broth slapping copper sides. The shepherd's hands move methodically, crushing valerian root, scooping honey. Norwegian farmers buried upside-down brooms to halt avalanches. Superstition works better than you'd think, provided you actually own a broom. Ice particles rattle the roof, a million angry bees. You taste iron, realize you've bitten your cheek. He thrusts a mortar into your hands. grind faster. Fear sours the brew. Historians still argue whether monks during the Little Ice Age used hallucinogenic mushrooms to endure endless winters, or just had really bad rye bread. Right now, you'd swallow either option. The hut tilts, clay jars clatter off shelves. You catch a vial of mugwort tincture, glass cold as a reaper's kiss. The shepherd sings through gritted teeth, a Graubünden herding chant turned into war cry. Firelight etches his profile, all nose and defiance. Snow crushes the eastern wall, splintered wood sighs. Cold slaps your face, sudden as a jilted lover. He shoves you toward the hearth. Stoke flames, or we'll be popsicles by matins. You obey, tossing juniper logs into coals. Resin explodes, blue sparks kiss your knuckles. The brew foams, an angry ocean in miniature. He strains it through muslin rag, trembling in his grip. A chunk of ceiling surrenders. Snowdrift spills across the floorboards. You spot a frozen spider, legs curled like a child's fist. The shepherd thrusts a steaming cup into your hands. Drink now. It tastes of burnt caramel and pine pitch, molten sunlight in a drought. Warmth vines through your ribs, anchoring you to bedrock. The roar dulls, becomes background static. He guzzles his portion, liquid tracing his stubble. 18th century Russian miners chewed angelica root during cave-ins. Either survived or died happy, the debate's still open. Wind shrieks through the breach, extinguishing 2 candles. The remaining flame shrinks, a golden comma refusing to end the sentence. He lobs a wool blanket over the shattered wall, snow gnawing at its edges. You press palms to the cauldron, heat tattooing survival into skin. Time blurs measured in shudders and sips. The brew's scent shifts, embers caramelizing honey into something primordial. Your pulse slows, sinks with the storm's retreating growl. Dawn cracks the sky pale as a chick's egg. Exhaustion weighs your limbs, sap hardening in pine bark. The shepherd surveys the wreckage. Same avalanche took my grandfather's goats in '03. Stupid beasts refused to leave their favorite ledge. Sunlight glints on snow, a diamond mine of regrets. You sip cold dregs, bitterness now familiar as your own heartbeat. Somewhere beneath the wreckage, the earth exhales, ready to begin again. The blacksmith arrives at noon, shoulders denting the doorway. His right hand hovers, palm up like a sacrifice. Blisters bubble, translucent capsules of agony. You smell burnt pork, realize it's his flesh. He collapses onto the hearthstones, chains on his apron jangling. Forgot to wet the quenching barrel. He mutters, voice deeper than the avalanche's growl. The shepherd rolls his eyes. Every spring, same song, different verse. You grab yarrow bundles, feathery leaves tickling your wrist. Medieval manuscripts recommended its use for battlefield wounds, though they also prescribed powdered mummy. So grain of salt, the blacksmith whimpers, a sound you didn't think giants could make. Crushed yarrow releases a peppery musk. You layer the poultice, green confetti on cracked skin. Swiss mercenaries stuffed their boots with this during the Italian wars, the shepherd notes. Sweat turned it into fungal soup, smelled like Satan's laundry. The blacksmith laughs, a mistake that rips fresh tears. His wedding ring glows angry red, metal fused to swollen flesh. You dribble chamomile oil around the band, a moat against infection. Some Appalachian healers swear spiderwebs cure burns. You're tempted to try it, if only to watch this behemoth squeal. Historians still argue whether Viking blacksmiths chanted spells or prayers, while forging the difference between magic and desperation being slim. You hum a Taylor Swift chorus, solid modern mysticism. The shepherd nudges a jar of honey toward you. Sumerian metalworkers used date syrup and cow bile. Let's stick with the bees. You smear golden strands over blisters. The blacksmiths sigh, fluttering the herbs. Smoke drifts through the broken roof. Filtered sunlight gilds the steam. The blacksmith's breathing steadies. Worst part, dropped the damn horseshoe in the process. Client wanted it shaped like a heart. You snort, a mistake when handling medicinal honey. The shepherd tosses you a rag. 17th century farriers would have dunked your whole arm in urine. Count your blessings, big man. The yarrow works fast, swelling retreats like tide from a blood moon. You wrap the hand in linen, knots tucked neat as hospital corners. The blacksmith flexes his fingers, winces. Better than leeches. Infinitely, you say, unless you're into that sort of thing. He leaves at dusk, clutching a tin of salve and strict instructions to avoid anvils. The shepherd kicks snow over blood-stained stones. Funny men who tame fire keep forgetting it bites. You rinse the mortar, yarrow specks swirling down the drain hole. Somewhere in the valley, a hammer strikes iron, the sound, carrying the particular loneliness of mistakes being forged into wisdom. Moonlight bleaches the meadow silver, your knees sink into dew-heavy grass. The shepherd's sickle glints, a crescent mirroring the sky. Verbena stalks rise around you, each leaf vein pulsing like neon in the dark. Pluck low, not high, he grunts. The old Saxons thought the bottom leaves held winter's patience. Your numb fingers fumble rosemary, gets all the glory. But verbena's the overachieving cousin no one invites to parties. Crushed stems release a lemony sting, like someone zested a battery. The shepherd stuffs his basket with military precision. Napoleon's troops drank this as tea before battles. Tasted like gutter water, but hey, they won. You pocket a sprig. Maybe it'll help you conquer laundry day. Historians still argue whether medieval love potions used verbena for its chemistry, or just because it looked pretty in flasks. The plant's edges glow, as if moonlight gets caught in its teeth. Your nail beds turn purple, harvesting at altitude feels like sticking hands in a freezer. The shepherd snorts. Alpine shamans chewed these leaves to see future husbands, mostly saw frostbite hallucinations. You spit out your sample priorities. 2 bats stitch patterns overhead, their squeaks too high for human regrets. Swiss farmers once lined cradles with verbena to repel witches, he says, worked better against diaper rash. A root snaps, its milky sap bleeds into soil. Dawn licks the horizon, your haul barely fills the basket's belly. The shepherd unfurls a cloth older than your grandparents'. Roman bathhouses through this, in steaming water, fancied themselves philosophers, while prunin. You imagine toga-clad influencers, hash steam and sublime. Your knees leave ghost prints in the grass, a temporary fossil record. He nods at a half-chewed stalk. Marmots hate the taste. Good, they've got terrible tipping etiquette. Star by star, the sky goes unemployed. You shoulder the basket, its weight a promise of brews to come. The meadow exhales damp and satisfied as you retreat toward wood smoke and the gradual business of dawn. His wheezing pulls you from sleep, cotton blankets strung tight across a trembling chest. The hearth's last ember winks red, a dying Morse code. You fumble for the herb rack, fingers brushing wool bundles, until they snag on Elecampane's fuzzy stalks. Medieval monks called it horseheal, slathered it on warhorses' wounds, alongside badger fat. The root cracks under your knife, scent like burnt coffee and attic dust. Steam rises bitter enough to curl nose hairs. Sip, you urge, holding the mug to chapped lips. He coughs, a wet thunderstorm trapped in his ribs. 3 sips vanish before he slumps back, his sweat staining the pillowcase like a tea bag. Historians still argue whether Byzantine doctors used elecampane for actual medicine or just to mask the stench of gangrene. The brew pools in his beard, dripping onto a sheepskin older than the steam engine. You crush fresh leaves into a poultice. The paste fluoresces under moonlight like cheap glow paint. His fever breaks by increments, each shiver a retreating soldier. The hut hums, lichen-coated walls conducting some ancient antibiotic lullaby. Tastes like Satan's foot fungus. He rasps, eyelids fluttering. You smirk, remembering the rancid goat cheese he force-fed you last week. Karma brews at many temperatures. Dawn leaks through smoke holes, needles of light, stitching his pallor back to human. A sparrow lands on the windowsill, tilts its head at the reek of medicinal steam. Elecampane's in the sunflower family, technically. Should you tell it? By noon, he's snoring a rusty chainsaw melody. You count his breaths against the brass clock's tick, human machinery recalibrating. The empty mug stares up, its dregs spelling Rorschach prophecies in the bottom. Outside, wind rifles through the herb garden. Sturdy elecampane sways, oblivious to the drama indoors. You whisper thanks to its hairy leaves. They don't whisper back. But hey, plants are terrible conversationalists, even when healthy. The hunter crashes through the door, pine resin clotting his hair like frozen tears. His lips bloom blue, a bruise spreading down his throat. The arrow juts from his thigh, its fletching dyed with woad's telltale indigo. You've read Venetian traders paid hunters to lace arrowheads with monkshood, that pretty purple flower capable of stopping hearts mid-beat. His chest heaves a bellows, drowning in wet sand. The shepherd props himself up, pillow still steaming from last night's fever brew. Boil the yellow jar's contents and fetch honeycomb, he croaks. Your fingers tear through clay-sealed remedies, unearthing a pouch of gnarled mandrake roots. Tudor apothecaries believed these screamed when uprooted, but yours just smell like yesterday's compost. The cauldron swallows the roots, their wrinkles dissolving into syrup. Historians still argue whether honey neutralizes toxins or just makes poisoned emperors die happy. You drizzle golden swirls, beeswax cracking under the spoon's pressure. His skin crisps like parchment, left too close to fire. You smear the paste on his gums. He gags, spitting curses in a language all teeth and gravel. The shepherd barks orders between coughs, bind his arms venom, makes men chew their own tongues neat off. You've heard of Scythian archers dipping arrows in viper venom and rotting blood, a cocktail that could empty a bladder in 30 seconds flat. This hunter's shaking proves traditions alive and kicking. The brew thickens, each bubble bursting with the sound of sucked marrow. Drink or die, you snap, holding the cup to those blue-black lips. He resists, until the shepherd murmurs something about widows and unpaid debts. The potion slides down bitter as a tax collector's ledger. Moonlight stripes the floor silver puddles where the antidote dripped. Medieval poisoners swore toxins brewed under a full moon killed slower, but smarter. You hope they were wrong. The hunter's fingers thaw first, pink, creeping back like dawn over snowfields. By third sip, his pupils stop yo-yoing. You wipe bile from his beard, counting seconds between wheezes. The arrow's tip gleams when extracted, a sliver of metal etched with interlocking wolves. The shepherd pockets it, his face granite. Outside, wind riffles through deadfall. You whisper to the moon, wondering who taught it to sharpen arrows. It doesn't answer, just lights the blood-stained bandages with clinical indifference. The hunter sleeps now, chest rising in tides that mock the sea. The hut exhales, pine resin and mandrake steam braiding into something almost alive. You lick honey from your wrist, sweetness curdling with adrenaline's aftertaste. Somewhere, a wolf howls. The shepherd smiles, a crack in stone, and blows out the last candle. Dawn cracks the mountains like a dropped egg, yolk-yellow light spilling over the valley. Villagers trudge uphill, each carrying iron baskets, glowing with captured embers. Their woolens stink of last winter's mildew, a welcome change from poison and pus. The shepherd rakes last night's ashes, revealing a fire pit shaped like a six-pointed star. You smirk, thinking of hippie crystal shops back home. He scowls, as if hearing your thoughts. Burn sage here before spring planting confuses the frost demons, he mutters. Medieval Europeans did similar purges, smudging thresholds with mugwort to repel plague spirits. A girl thrusts her basket at you, embers nestled in juniper twigs. You transfer coals like handling live scorpions. Careful, they bite, she giggles. Her mother scowls, crossing herself with a thyme sprig. 37 villagers encircle the pit, dumping embers into the star's grooves. Smoke, plumes spiral, sages camphor sting, chasing away the last memory of snow. Someone hums, a drone like bagpipes, with bronchitis. The shepherd lobs a dried mushroom into the flames, its cap sizzling purple sparks. Fly agaric, he says, answering your raised eyebrow. Sami shamans used these to talk to reindeer gods, or maybe just hallucinate better hunting grounds. The smoke thickens, pungent and sweet as burnt sugar. You cough, eyes watering. An old man slaps your back, his palm calloused from milking goats that probably vote Republican. Breathe deeper, cleans the debts from your soul, he rasps. Historians still argue whether these rites were spiritual or just medieval air freshener. Teenagers dare each other to wave hands through flames. One yelps, sucking scorched fingertips. The crowd cackles, a sound that would medieval bishops reaching for exorcism manuals. A woman unwraps cloth bundles, tossing seeds into the fire. Each pop sounds like a tiny surrender. Barley for fortune, poppy for sleep, nettle to spite bad in-laws, she explains. You pocket a poppy seed, the shepherd catches you, so that and the harvest'll give you nightmares, he warns. The smoke shifts, forming shapes. A horse, a spinning wheel, a very angry badger. The shepherd tosses salt, dissolving the vision. Can't have folk getting ideas, he grumbles. Dusk arrives early, dragging stars behind it, like cans on a wedding car. Villagers depart, taking new embers sealed in resin-coated boxes. The fire pit cools, its star pattern now just ashy geometry. You scrub soot from the cauldron, water sloshing like a drunkard's apology. The shepherd examines leftover herbs, grunting at a crushed violet cap. Amanita muscaria, he nods. Same mushroom Norse berserkers ate before battle. But that's tourist trap nonsense. A hoot echoes. The girl from earlier perches in a large tree. She drops a honey cake wrapped in oak leaves. For the demons, she stage whispers, scampering into twilight. You bite into sweetness, ash aftertaste clinging like a jealous ex. The shepherd stokes the hearth, its flames mirroring the village lights far below. For 10 breaths, maybe 11, the mountain holds its own smoky vigil. Then wind riffles the hut's bones, scattering seeds and spells alike into the dumbstruck night. Wind gnaws through the hut's cracks, carving ice dust into your lungs. The shepherd's cot groans, each breath rasps like parchment, dragged over gravel. You crush poppy pods in a mortar, their dried rattle echoing the old man's chest. Milk-white sap beads on the pestle. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians used this latex to mummify nobles or just to silence wailing funeral singers. The cauldron whispers, water heated over last night's dwindling embers. His hand grips yours, papery skin stretched over knuckles like old violin strings. 3 drops, he wheezes. 4, and you'll kneel beside me. Victorian nurses once measured deathbed doses this way, counting seconds between gasps. You stir clockwise, avoiding the widow's mistake that drowned 3 brothers in eternal sleep. Frost etches ferns on the window. The poppy brew swirls, opaque as a cataract eye. He motions for the cup, then stops. The honey, he croaks. You glance at the shelf, jars clotted with last summer's golden hoard. A memory sears 14 days ago, the girl's honey cake crumbling in your palm. For the demons, she'd said, you dip a comb chunk into the brew, sweetness curdling the bitterness. The shepherd nods his throat, working like a rusty pump. He drinks 1 sip, peeling decades from his face. For 9 heartbeats, his eyes clear blue as gentians in meltwater. Then, the tremor returns a leaf, surrendering to gravity. Your thumb finds the scar on the mortar's rim, a relic from the blacksmith's burnt palm. Acid green yarrow had bloomed here once. Now it's just rust and resin. Outside, a wolf tests the wind, its howl fraying into silence. The shepherd's finger twitches toward the herb bundles. Burn mugwort with me. You hesitate, recalling villagers tossing barley into flames. His glare could split granite. As embers devour dried leaves, smoke writhes into shapes. A horned serpent, a stooped woman. The shepherd chuckles, a sound like kindling snapping. Mother, he rasps. Medieval midwives claimed mugwort smoke revealed ancestors or indigestion. You count his breaths between sips, 37, a prime number unbreakable. His chest stills. You reach to close his eyes, then freeze. Not yet, he gasps. Roman senators kept pet mice to nibble death into their ears, 12th hour stalling. He fumbles under the cot, producing a clay jar stoppered with beeswax. Inside, a lock of hair white as birch bark. Hers, he says, letting strands fall into the fire. Historians debate whether Hatshepsut requested this ritual, or if a lover invented it post-mortem. Smoke twists, forming a young woman braiding lavender. The shepherd's laugh breaks into a cough, specks of red staining his beard. Always show off. You press the cup to his lips. He pushes it aside. Enough. His hand finds the wolfgrass stalk hanging above the bed, its roots still gripping a pebble. Chew when the frost comes. Shadows pool in his eye sockets. The fire pops, launching an ember onto his blanket. You smother it, leaving a charred star. His last exhale smells of honey and iron. The hut creaks, a sound you once mistook for goats on the roof. Now you know better. Moonlight bleeds through smoke holes, spotlighting the mortar. 3 drops cling to its rim, quicksilver refusing to fall. You pocket the poppy seeds, ignoring their future screams in your dreams. Wind shifts, carrying the village's midnight bells. A pointless count of hours where breath no longer matters. You slump onto the stool's spine, conforming to its warped wood. Dawn arrives uninvited, frost painting the corpse's beard with diamonds. The brew curdles in its cup, a skin forming like pond scum. You upturn it onto the fire, hissing steam writes poems you'll never decipher. Somewhere below, a goat bleats. the mountain pretends not to listen. The door creaks, not wine this time, but a boot heel scuffing soot from the threshold. She stands framed in dawn's grimy light, hands on hips in the shepherd's exact tilt. You count the matches between them. Same scar slicing the left eyebrow, same way of blowing hair from her eyes without using fingers. If reincarnation stole his bones and sewed them into this stranger, you'd believe it. She strides past you, kneeling beside the cot, like someone who's rehearsed this moment. Her palm presses the shepherd's sternum, waiting for a vibration. Even fire logs know has fled. Took his sweet time, she mutters, tugging a moth-eaten blanket over his face. The fabric sags where his nose should tent it, a topography erased. You gesture to the cold brew cup. He refused the last, always did. She yanks open the shutters, morning glare, exposing dust, serpents in the air. Roman texts claim sunlight purges death miasma, total horseshit, but the living prefer the theater. Her voice caroms off jars, each syllable echoing his gruff baritone. You catch yourself scanning her for hidden mirrors. She rummages through his herb chest, tossing aside valerian root with a snort. Grandpa's sleep tea recipe. Leaves out the fun part. From her pocket comes a twist of papyrus, a 17th century Venetian formula for dream ink using crushed emeralds. Historians still debate whether Medici nobles hallucinated better with gem dust or just liked wasting money. You pocket the note, mental asterisk added. Work begins. She instructs without looking, measuring dried chamomile in pinches, calibrated to his ghost. We'll wrap him in the burial shroud tonight. Mint, under the tongue, keeps decay from socializing. You recall Egyptian embalmers using honey as a bactericide. Their pharaohs preserved sticky sweet for eternity. Her hands pause mid-snip. You took his poppy seeds. Statement, not accusation. You touch the lump in your pocket, seeds, suddenly hot as live coals. I've got better, she says, producing a vial of blue granules. Sumerian sleeping sand found the recipe etched inside a royal chamber pot. Works faster, kicks harder, tastes like donkey hoof. The day frays into tasks. You grind resurrection fern, its dusty scent clinging to your eyelashes. She layers the shepherd's shroud with juniper, needles pointing east toward his wife's grave. When you reach for the last honey jar, her hand blocks yours. That's for the bees. Swap it with the chestnut paste, sweet enough to confuse ghosts. Twilight arrives, frost scribbling new patterns on the window. She drags the shrouded body outside, a trail of rosemary sprigs marking the path. You shoulder half the weight, startled by his lightness. How many mountains had this man carried? The grave accepts him without ceremony. No chants, no tears, just 2 shovels biting dark soil. She pats the mound once, like burping a child. Rests, overrated anyway. Back in the hut, she stokes the fire with his favorite cedar logs. Flame shadows mimic his hand gestures, a puppeteer's final bow. You watch her brew licorice root tea, left elbow jutting exactly as his did, when measuring wind direction. A question festers. How long since you'd seen him? She rubs a soot stain shaped like Corsica. 11 years, 3 months, 14 days. Not that he counted. The steam fogs her face, blurring her into a memory of him. Sent a letter through a wool trader once. Told me to marry a man with strong thumbs for herb crushing. You smirk, and she slams the kettle down, a cord of iron and defiance. Married a botanist who brews aphrodisiacs for castrati. Papa would have hated him. Her grin flashes, a familial weapon newly sharpened. Midnight punctures the silence. She drags his stool to the fire, occupying it like a throne. The flames approve, flickering in the old nodding rhythm. You glimpse the future here, decades of identical nights. This woman fossilizing into his mirror image. When she tosses mugwort onto coals, the smoke coils into his beard's silhouette. You cough, she inhales deeply, absorbing the ghost through her nostrils. Don't worry, he's mostly smoke now. You sleep fitfully, dreaming of honey-coated mummies and gemstone overdoses. At some point, she drapes his wolfskin over you, its musk, rewriting your nightmares into lullabies. Dawn finds her scraping lichen off the north wall, the shepherd's chisel in her fist. Acid-free mortar recipe, she says, tapping a stained parchment, stolen from a Carthaginian midwife's diary, works better than lime. Ignore the bit about frog semen. You spend the morning repairing roof cracks, patching holes with clay and stubbornness. She passes up a basket. Inside squats a loaf, studded with suspicious mushrooms. Lunch. They're either psychedelic or rancid. Flip a coin. By afternoon, the hut breathes easier, logs realigned into something that might outlast you. She surveys the work, hands copying his thumbs and belt stance. Not terrible for a rookie. The compliment hangs between you, fragile as a cobweb. You pack your satchel slowly, letting her pretend not to count your movements. At the door, she presses a bundle into your hands. Saffron crocus bulbs. Plant them where thieves won't dig, unless you enjoy poisoning neighbors. You step into the wind, her silhouette already fading into the hearth's glow. Halfway down the trail, you glance back. The hut's smoke forms a lazy circle, his signature or hers, or the mountain laughing at the distinction. Your fingers trace grooves in the clay, each jar's surface a braille map of hard seasons. She lines them up along the hearthstone, labels facing east like sun worshippers. Great-granddad's drought year, she says, tapping a vessel mottled with ancient crackles. Stored nightshade berries during the long frost of 1636, killed 3 bandits and a nosy tax collector. You peer inside. The dust smells like burnt caramel and regret. Historians still argue whether the Little Ice Age boosted herbal potency or just made everyone desperate. She snorts a sound identical to her father's reaction to scholars. Her thumbnail chips at a crusted rim. Reality's simpler. Hunger makes better seasoning than any spice. The next jug clinks with river-smoothed stones. Flood remedies, she explains, rolling one across your palm. Its surface shows carved runes worn to ghostly nubs. Carthaginian midwife recipe. Boil these with pregnant mare's urine. Stops hemorrhages faster than prayer. You make a mental note to avoid future horse-themed teas. When you lift the smallest pot, its weight surprises. Ah, her calloused hand clasps yours, steadying the relic. That's Granny's revenge. Inside nestles a dried frog, legs splayed in rigor mortis mouth, stuffed with wolfsbane. Old Bavarian hex against cheating spouses. Worked too, found her husband frozen in a tavern privy. The amphibian grins up at you, a cautionary tale in keratin. Mid-afternoon light slants through smoke holes, spotlighting jars marked with slashes and dots. His system. She drags a finger through soot, drawing a timeline on the table, each notch a blizzard dot, a wildfire, crosshatch, plague year tinctures. The pattern resembles a musical score played on disaster. You sip bitterroot tea, its aftertaste conjuring census, records scribbled in mildew. She pauses at a container sealed with beeswax, its sides etched with vine patterns. The wax cracks like old knuckles as she pries it open. Inside, layered powders sift like geological strata. Top layer granduncle's asthma blend. Below that, typhoid antidote from the 30 years. War. Bottoms mostly rat droppings, ignore that. Your spoon clinks against something metallic. A Roman denarius emerges, green with patina. Payment from a legionnaire's widow, she says, flipping the coin. Caesar's profile stares up, nose eroded by centuries of fingers. Herbalists doubled as bankers when empires crumbled. Interest rates got creative. You imagine dried eyeballs in a lone shark's ledger. Evening crawls in, carrying the scent of distant lightning. She reveals the prize, a fat-bellied amphora propped in the shadows. 2 handles, 3 cracks, 1 suspicious stain shaped like a screaming face. The originals. Her whisper stirs mites in the air, copied from Alexandria's scrolls before Christians torched the place. Recipes even Galen wouldn't touch. You squint at faded Greek script. A phrase leaps out, neuron and sphygmos intertwined with doodles of scorpions. Herophilus dissected nerves from executed criminals. She murmurs, a hint of lecture hall pride in her voice. Mixed their spinal fluid with mandrake for paralysis tonics. Dark stuff, but history likes its geniuses bloody. Midnight oil burns low as you transcribe instructions, quill scratching like mouse feet. She tests a salve on her wrist, the one labeled gout and regret. A chuckle erupts, smokers rasp mingling with girlish glee. Tastes like licking a battery. You debate which part of that statement warrants follow-up. By dawn, the jars stand guard once more, their stories temporarily unshelved. She wipes glaze dust onto her apron, leaving constellations of fingerprints. Every drought's a recipe, every avalanche a prescription. You don't archive years, you bottle collapses. You hoist your pack, bulging with illegible notes. She doesn't wave, already scrubbing the table where history briefly spilled. As you descend the trail, A new smoke shape forms overhead. Not a circle this time, a question mark curling into the wind. The mountain holds its breath, waiting for your answer. The hut door groans shut behind you, final as a coffin lid. No shepherd's chuckle cracks the silence, just wind combing through pine needles outside. Your palm smears the table's dust, clearing workspace where his hand once anchored the world. You glance at your notes, ink blurred by a nervous thumbprint. 17 wild thyme sprigs, each measured thrice, because counting feels like diffusing bombs. Coals hiccup in the hearth, you've stacked them wrong. Obviously, medieval monks believed thyme brews granted courage, though right now it smells like impending failure. The first sprig snaps louder than you remember, its herbal musk triggering a sneeze. Bless you, you mumble to the empty room, then feel immediately ridiculous. Flames flirt with the copper cauldron, his cauldron, leaving orange lipstick smears on the rim. You pour spring water too fast. It hisses like a scorned lover. 3 dried juniper berries bob to the surface. Or are they 4? Panic math ensues, as useful as knitting during an earthquake. A moth dive bombs your forehead, nature's perfect distraction, swatting ruins the thyme arrangement. Petals scatter like green confetti. Historians still argue whether Hippocrates prescribed actual medicine or just really convincing placebos. Right now, you'd trade all his scrolls for one clear instruction. The 7th stir feels off, wooden spoon scraping a C-sharp wine from the pot. Your elbow knocks the salt cellar. It rolls off the table with suicidal intent. Shit. The curse hangs loud enough to startle even the cobwebs. 1589. The year Paracelsus declared salt essential for astral alignment in Remedies. You scoop grains back up, pretending 3 pine needles snuck in aren't a problem. Moonlight leaks through smoke holes, spotlighting the liquid's reluctant simmer. Steam coils into shapes that almost resemble his nodding profile, then dissolves. You taste a droplet. Tartness pricks your tongue like a vindictive fairy. Progress. You ask the nearest clay jug. It stares back, old crack, forming a judgmental frown. Your pinky dips into valerian root powder, which clumps like wet coffee grounds. One recipe mentioned 3 finger-widths of water. Whose fingers? The shepherd's sausage-thick digits, or your own twiggy disaster? You compromise, splashing liquid until the pot threatens mutiny. An hour in, the brew resembles swamp discharge more than liquid lullaby. You recall a Renaissance manual suggesting powdered eggshells for clarifying troubled spirits. Desperation outweighs dignity. Crushed shells snow into the murk. The mixture burps, an ominous green bubble pops with the sound of wet Velcro. Dew seeps under the door, licking your boots as night ages. The 4th taste test numbs your lips. Is that supposed to happen? 17th century apothecaries sold similar tingling tonics as kissing deterrents for overzealous suitors. You swallow anyway, body buzzing like a downed power line. By dawn, the concoction has reduced to tarthic sludge. Flames shrink from the cauldron, ashamed of their participation. You ladle it into a flask anyway, the gloopy pour echoing in your hollow victory. Sunlight hits the vessel, revealing flecks of undissolved eggshell glinting like lithium. Outside, a goat bleats what might be encouragement. You take a ceremonial sip, forcing your throat to collaborate. The brew coats your ribs like molten amber, then detonates a blush of bergamot warmth. Firelight flickers once, twice, in the shepherd's old rhythm. Somewhere, beneath the pine resin aftertaste, you swear you taste approval. The cart's wheels scream like butchered pigs. You wince before turning. A man perches on the seat, his hat wide enough to shield 3 bald heads. Beads clatter around his neck, each one a different saint's martyrdom. New apothecary, he croons, gesturing to your flask with a ringed pinky. Silk Road traders used mummy powder as medicine, though modern tests show it was mostly crushed beetles. You nod, already regretting it. He hops down, boots crunching rosemary you'd spent hours pruning. His cloak reeks of camphor and desperation. Chamomile tears, he tusks, flipping your herb bundles with a jeweler's disdain. Old hat, tourists want fireworks, effervescent powders, tinctures that glow. A bottle materializes in his hand, neon liquid sloshing like swamp gas. Brings visions, or your Groshen back. Your thumb finds the green stain on your palm dirt, and Veronica leaf mashed into permanence. 14th century merchants faced flogging for selling diluted saffron. This man's ancestors probably invented the practice. Not interested, you say, too quiet. He leans closer, garlic breath fogging the air between you. Ah, loyalty. His grin reveals a gold-capped molar. Cute, useless. Coins spill from his sleeve, a silver cataract. Your mountain hovel gets one winter. My offer, unlimited catgut sutures. French soap. A pause, real soap. Pine resin stiffens your hair as you shake your head. Historians still argue whether medieval linen traders secretly stiffened cloth with powdered chalk. The merchant sighs, pocketing coins with practiced fingers. Fine, die virtuous. His wagon lurches forward, scattering your painstakingly arranged yarrow bundles. You watch dust swallow his silhouette. A raven laughs from a birch tree, or maybe it's your imagination. The flask warms in your grip, its contents sloshing thick as blood. Your knuckles brush the hut's doorframe, splinters catching on calluses earned since spring. Night falls like a dropped curtain. Firelight resurrects the crushed herbs, their ghosts staining the table green. You bundle lavender, tight enough to hurt. Some say Venetian traders carried plague remedies that were just dyed vinegar. Your hands keep moving, knuckle bones aching in agreement with the old ways. Dawn finds you replanting trampled sage. Fingers cradle each root like a votive. The merchant's vial glints in the weeds, discarded when his horse stumbled. You kick it into the fire. Flames spit indigo, briefly outlining a woman's face in the smoke. When you blink, it's just ash. By noon, Your stain has deepened to emerald. You press it to the hut's western wall, leaving a handprint that could outlive you. The shepherd's voice drifts through memory. Some currencies leave no rust. Distant bells jingle another wagon on the valley road. You turn away, already reaching for the mortar. The first stone clicks, a pebble kissing your heels like an unwanted secret. Then the mountain exhales, its breath, a rolling thunder of scree and spite. You dive behind the oak table knees, skidding through rosemary sprigs as the eastern wall implodes. Stone shrieks on stone. The hut coughs up dust like a dying beast. When silence falls, it sticks in your throat. Sunlight stabs through the new wound, illuminating crushed shelves and scattered jars. Your green-stained hand emerges first, sifting debris for the yarrow poultice jar. 14th century masons used birch tar to weatherproof mortar. The shepherd's voice murmurs this as you claw through rubble. A clay shard gashes your palm warm blood, christening the shattered floor. Moss creeps across fallen stones within hours, nature's paramedics, stitching wounds with emerald sutures. You spit dirt and curses, kicking a rock that once anchored the herb rack. Historians still argue whether medieval avalanches were viewed as divine punishment or geographic indigestion. The answer's irrelevant. Your knuckles already bark against clay as you dig. Dusk finds you mud-caked and muttering, forming new bricks from river sludge and stubbornness. Firelight reveals newsprint stuffed between logs, 19th century insulation you'd laughed at yesterday. Tonight, you bless the shepherd's thrift. Your breath fogs as mortar sets, each layer colder than the last. Rebuilding becomes a dance with ghosts. The cauldron resurfaces intact, its dents now badges of honor. You scrub it with snow fingers pruning in the meltwater. Some claim monks fermented hallucinogenic honey in similar pots, though no recipe survives. The merchant's neon vial glows faintly in the wreckage. You bury it beneath the new hearthstone. Days blur into stone hauling and splinter pulling. A blister bursts. You pack it with crushed plantain leaves. The green stain on your hand darkens, matching the lichen colonizing the rebuilt wall. At night, you dream of roots knitting bedrock. Dawns arrive sharper, light slicing through gaps in the patched roof. Week 3 brings an audience. A pine martin perches on the repaired windowsill, nose twitching at your nettle stew. You share a spoonful, it flees in disgust. Suit yourself. You grumble, stirring in extra garlic. The shepherd's ghost would have chuckled. His favorite knife handle juts from a fresh mortar joint. Rain tests your craftsmanship first, drumming the roof in staccato mockery. You crouch under the weakest beam, a dented pewter bowl catching drips. By storm's end, only 17 drops breach your defenses. The bowl becomes a ritual offering, left brimming with rainwater for thirsty spirits. Strangers arrive with the thaw, a woodcutter bearing splintered yew handles. You trade rosemary balm for repairs his axe blade, singing against rotten timber. He mentions the merchant's wagon overturned near the pass, coins scattered across a wolf's den. Your laugh startles a nearby jay, its squawk echoing through the valley. Spring exhales, crocuses punching through the rebuilt doorstep. You replant trampled herbs with a trowel blade nicking a finger already scarred. Blood beads merge with soil, another layer in the hut strata. The green stain persists, now blooming up your wrist like ivy. Nights grow shorter, firelight reflecting off realigned stones. Full moon unveils the transformed hut. Walls stand crooked, but defiant, chinks hosting industrious spiders. Smoke curls properly again, the chimney no longer coughing like a consumptive uncle. You brew mint tea in the salvaged cauldron, steam sketching victory, runes in the air. Dawn finds you surveying repairs, boots crunching gravel from the landslide. 3 wild goats pick through remnants, their yellow eyes judging your masonry. One bleats, you swear it sounds like approval. The mountain watches its silence, less hostile now. Your tools rest against the wall, waiting for the next betrayal. The flask warms your palm, its curve familiar as the cauldron's belly. You fill it slowly, each drip of amber, brew whispering mountain secrets. 14th century pilgrims carried similar tonics, their leather satchels stuffed with valerian and dill. Your pack holds crusted bread, a wedge of goat cheese hardening at the edges. Moonlight slices through clouds, a silver scythe reaping stars. You shoulder the door shut, wood groaning in a language of reluctant farewells. 3 steps down the path, your boot heels already collecting dew. The hut exhales smoke, one last wisp curling like a beckoning finger. Historians still argue whether Alpine herbalists communed with spirits or just ate bad mushrooms. Tonight you know the truth. Pebbles clatter behind you, a sound too rhythmic for chance. You don't look back, not yet. Something rustles in your pack, the flask's cork working loose. A pine martin darts across the trail, its pelt dusted with starlight. It pauses, black eyes reflecting your green-stained hand. Still judging, you mutter, the words swallowed by cathedral pines. Your joke dies unanswered. The forest holds its breath. Dawn bleeds through distant peaks, the skyline jagged as broken pottery. You drink deep, the brew's warmth spreading like a wool blanket on frost-nipped skin. Some claim chamomile can halt avalanches, a folk remedy scribbled in monastery margins. Your laugh echoes, the mountain answers with falling gravel. The path unspools, each switchback a lesson in gravity. You pass the merchant's overturned cart, its wheels mossy and splintered. Coins glint in wolfscat, a fitting grave for hollow promises. Wild thyme carpets the wreck, purple blossoms thriving on hubris. At the valley's edge you finally turn. The hut perches impossibly small, a brown scab on granite flesh. Sun strikes its rebuilt wall for one heartbeat. It glows like honey in tea. Then shadows reclaim it, the mountain's patience, outlasting all trespassers. Your flask weighs lighter now, each sip measured against miles. A raven croaks, its voice rougher than the shepherd's ever was. You toss a rosemary sprig skyward. The bird snatches it mid-flight. Tradition says they carry favors to dead herbalists, or maybe they just like shiny things. Stone yields to meadow your soul's crushing frost-heaved earth. The brew's aftertaste lingers, hints of wildfire and forgotten birthdays. Ahead, wood smoke smudges the horizon. Behind, a thin moon watches. You walk, not quite alone, your shadow tethered to a hut full of ghosts. Frost feathers the flask, your thumb smudging icy lace from the metal. 13 weeks ago, you'd have cursed this cold. Now, it feels like a handshake from an old enemy. Your breath ghosts upward, joining mist that clings to furs like sheep's wool. A cairn marks the high pass, stones stacked by generations of wanderers. You add a pebble from the landslide, its edges still sharp with betrayal. Some say these piles honor mountain gods, others just needed to drop ballast. The rock fits crooked, a minor rebellion against symmetry. Wind funnels through the gap, snatching your hood like a pickpocket. You grip the flask tighter, its contents sloshing a drowsy rhythm. Medieval travelers believed certain brews could make miles feel shorter, a placebo with oregano notes. Your blisters disagree, but your liver begs for mercy. Sunset finds you at the tree line, roots forming a natural staircase. You crush juniper berries underfoot, their scent sharp as the widow's grief-soaked brew. Fireflies emerge, tiny lanterns mapping the descent. One lands on your sleeve, its glow staining the fabric chartreuse. Night falls proper, the thin moon slicing clouds like a cheese wire. You unroll your bedroll beside a lichen-crusted boulder, its bulk radiating stored sunlight. The flask's final sip tastes different notes of iron and goodbye. Historians debate whether herbalists added blood to sealing wax. You spit out a pine needle. Dawn comes grudgingly, the sky streaked with unshed rain. Your knees protest, each step downslope a negotiation. An unnamed stream crosses your path, its water milky with glacial flower. You kneel, green-stained hands breaking the surface, and drink centuries of pulverized stone. The hut's brew hums in your veins, an old song in a cracked vessel. You count 37 switchbacks before the forest thins, air thickening with resin and rot. A woodpecker hammers Morse code, its message either profound or protein-driven. By midday, you spot the first survey marker, rusted iron bleeding into granite. 19th century cartographers etched these, their maps, missing more caves than they found. You kick pebbles into a fissure, listening for drops that never come. The mountain keeps its secrets, and it's dead. The brew's warmth fades, leaving your tongue ashen. You pluck a sprig of wolfgrass, chewing its bitter stem for old time's sake. Ravens circle their shadows, stitching the trail behind you. One drops a twig, its leaves still sticky with sap. You pocket it, a consolation prize. When the trail forks, you choose left on instinct. 49 paces later, a lichen-scabbed sign confirms it. The letters spell VALDORF, though someone's amended it to VALDEATH with charcoal. You trace the vandalism, fingertips blackening like the merchant's rotten promises. Dusk's third act paints the sky Brews purple. Your flask hangs empty, a clinking reminder at your hip. The first village lanterns wink awake, yellow eyes in the gloaming. You pause, hand resting on the yarrow pouch, its contents quieter now. The thin moon rises, a comma in night's sentence. You turn for a final look, but the peaks have drawn a curtain of mist. Distance softens the hut's memory, its lessons packed tight as dried herbs. The road ahead smells of rain, a ND Chinese letter wood smoke. Your next teacher, waiting flame-lit and impatient. Boots crunch the first cobblestones, their rhythm foreign after months of soil. You touch the green stain on your wrist, ivy reaching for your pulse. Somewhere above, a raven laughs. Somewhere behind, a chimney exhales. You keep walking, the Brews lullaby hummed in your marrow. The flask cools in your grasp, its etched surface misted with mountain breath. You cap it gently, sealing echoes of pine resin and long dead fires. Your boots sink into softened earth, each step unknotting the season's aches. The village lanterns sway, amber pupils winking through swaddling fog. Dew clings to your sleeves, tiny mirrors catching the thin moon's smirk. You pause where cobblestones begin, their orderly rows a psalm after the wild's cacophony. Ravens roost in a lightning-split oak, their feathers ruffling like pages in an ancient ledger. The green stain on your palm has faded, a ghost of ivy's grip. You press it to your chest, a silent pact with vanished stone walls. Distant laughter spills from an inn warm as steam off fresh bread. You inhale wood smoke and yeast threading through the Alpine chill. Your pack sags, emptied of everything but pebbles and stubborn herb dust. A child's voice drifts from an open stable, singing a rhyme about wolves and wedding rings. The ravens take flight, their wings fraying the mist into spirals. You count them without meaning to 7 shadows dissolving into dusk. The final sip's bitterness lingers, a quiet teacher still murmuring in your veins. You breathe out slow as honey dripping from a winter spoon. Stars prick through the clouds, pinpricks in a well-worn quilt. Somewhere upslope, a chimney sighs. Your shadow stretches thin, barely tethered to the cobblestones. It ripples, then stills, melting into velveteen dark. The village breathes around you, a living creature settling into dreams. You match its rhythm, footfalls softening, blurring, until even ghosts forget your name. Sleep comes not as a guest, but as a forgiveness. Your lungs fill with valley air, sweet and heavy, with unfinished stories. The night wraps you in bergamot and murmur, a lullaby hummed through glacier bones. Drift now between lantern glow and memory, your borders dissolving like sugar in tea. The ravens grow quiet. The moon blinks once. The mountain, already dreaming, says nothing at all.